said it had to be, like everything else, any other project, but, yeah.
Specials come out to look at the late bid, but we talked about this stuff.
All right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to call the Inland Wetlands Watercourse Commission meeting to order for June 21st at 7:01 PM. Attendance, Stephen Molinelli, Chair, present. Russ Davenport, Vice Chair.
Present.
Jackie Mulvey, Secretary.
Present.
Jeff Lippincott.
Present.
Frank Oliveri.
Present.
Gary Paganelli.
Present.
And for public information, we have 3 vacancies that presently exist on our commission, and we would encourage anybody who's interested in becoming involved with the town to consider filling one of those slots. Under agenda review, there was an agenda that was sent out on Friday, and then it was amended, I think, yesterday or Monday, and it was amended again tonight. So just be careful of what agenda you're looking at, because I'm going to look at the one that I worked on up until I arrived now. So if I'm missing something with the new agenda, Jeff, please point it out to me.
Okay.
Hopefully I don't, and we'll go from there. And just for public information, there's an expectation that our town manager will be present, and I don't see him here. If he is present, we'll extend him the courtesy of talking to the commission regarding one of our responsibilities, and then we'll move ahead and go back to the agenda. Is Tom Grimaldi here? I didn't see him. Jeff, is going to be here tonight?
He's gonna appear, yeah.
Okay, thank you. I think those are my only 2 concerns regarding the agenda in terms of the review. With regard to the accepting of the minutes, I'd like to postpone accepting of the minutes because there were significant changes that I read into the minutes that were lacking, and rather than vote on an incomplete set of minutes, I'd like to send the minutes back and get them to be redone, listening to the tape again. Anybody opposed to that? Is there a second to that?
Second.
Okay, so then, all those in favor of just postponing the voting on the minutes, it's unanimous. Thank you very much. Our first order of business is a public hearing. The applicant is Maureen Pisano, 148 East Wakefield Boulevard, and the proposal is a 40-foot by 4-foot dock and boat lift. Good evening.
Right tonight.
For the record, please introduce yourself.
I'm Lozano. I'm at 148 East Wakefield Boulevard, Winston, Connecticut. I've been trying to get a dock in. Last time I was here for the public hearing, I was asked to get a littoral boundary and code method survey, which I did. You have it in front of you. I know this is the public hearing, so I'm not sure how far this goes. I do have a neighbor that is here also. I know you came and looked, and I know somebody by the somebody came and looked way of water too, which I'm glad to come see the site. I really would like, in my 30 feet, I really would like to move where my existing dock is now over, so I'm not right on my neighbor's boundary. The dock is 4 feet wide, the boat lift is 10 feet wide. If it's possible, that's what I'm asking.
When you say you'd like to move it away from the littoral boundary,
Yes.
okay, that would please the
If
commission.
I'm facing the water, it would be, I'd like to move it away from the
Left side.
neighbors on my left side, yes.
Move it more toward the middle of your property.
Exactly.
Okay. I I visited the property, and it's a challenging property.
It is,
You know,
it is.
and
It's
there's
where
lots
we
of,
are, yeah.
there's lots of challenging properties on the lake, and the commission has been very open-minded in listening to the request of the applicant. This is a public hearing because, for informational purposes, the boat lift or dock, either or, are permanent structures, and if they're within the littoral boundary, which is 10 feet from the property line going out into the water, it automatically triggers a public hearing, and that's why Ms. Pisano is here. So, any feelings on it from the commission? Any questions or concerns?
I mean, we are moving it closer into the middle of the littoral boundary, correct? So-
Away from the littoral
Or
boundary.
away from, yes.
With the positioning about how far will you be to the littoral boundary from your boat lift, because that's on the
But, I mean, I can work with Jeff, we can decide on something, my surveyor will be more than happy to come back up before we permanently do it, if it's a go. I did, not last meeting, the April meeting, I did submit a paper where we had it all, we had done, I think, 3 to 4 feet from the left, the 4-foot dock, the 10-foot boat lift, and I still think we had 5 or 6 feet to the right.
which would bring it more toward the middle of your property.
Yes.
And the dimensions of the dock and boat lift are not changing?
Well, yes, I'm here because the dock we have now is about 22 to 24 feet. I'm asking for the max of 40 feet.
And the width?
It's 4 feet, which is exactly what the width of the existing dock is.
But so you're including, tell me again.
I'm sorry, no, 4 feet, which is the existing.
Yeah.
The
But
width,
the
the
length,
length is 22 to 24 now. I'm asking for the max of 40. I think that is the max.
It is.
Okay.
that's 18 feet long.
You're gonna be 5 feet.
I think what the commission should be looking at now regarding the second part of the request, the extent of the length of the boat lift, is how it's going to impact on navigational traffic in and out of that narrow area, and whether it negatively impacts on neighbors' ability or inability to function with their boat.
Yes, because the two littoral boundaries get closer as you go out.
Yeah, it's in a cove, so,
Well, you can see it.
Last summer, there was some large float that was in that cove.
Yes.
Who's that belong to?
It belongs to a neighbor.
Okay.
is that the boat that's parked against your neighbor's?
No, this is the neighbor on to our left.
Okay.
Everybody's okay with that?
I'm not saying a word. I'm not here to do that tonight. I'm here to. It does obstruct my view, but the kids play on it, so I'll just leave it at that.
It just jams the whole cove up in there, as
I-
tight as
you
it
know,
is.
I
in
know,
there.
I just, you know, you.
Why are you asking for more length into the water?
Because the boat lift is 10 feet. My son has a couple jet skis. We have a party boat that we've not put in about 3 or 4 years. It needs major work. It may go back in one day, it may not. So instead of being in my neighbor's boundary, water frontage, where they've been kind enough to let me be there for 30 years, I'd like to keep it all in a row.
Well, it doesn't seem, I mean, the other two docks, we're just looking at the same, this little smaller picture here, see, I mean, I assume people put their boats in front of the other docks, or they just swim off them? It doesn't look like a huge navigational hazard on paper, at least.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty much a straight shoe. I mean, my neighbor's here too.
You're coming into your
It's pretty much,
area, it's straight in.
it's straight in.
You're coming into some of the other sites, especially to your right on the water, is not straight
We
in.
are not. We are almost to the center of the cove.
It would be better.
Well, propose that question, if you think.
Go ahead, Gary.
Okay, question is, you're trying to go out straight from your boundary, where your neighbor to the right is following the littoral line out,
Right.
okay? Would there be a reason why you wouldn't turn your dock to go with the littoral boundary?
That was another question. That was something that my surveyor brought to my attention, to maybe doing one, a twist it.
I would think, per my own opinion, that doing it would be better for you coming into your dock. It would be safer coming into your dock, where if somebody's jumping off at the dock next door to you and you're trying to back your boat off that boat lift, it's gonna bring you probably an extra 8 feet away from that boundary at the end of your dock. You know, I think it's a better line.
Well, it would bring, as you go to the east, right? This is, as you go to the east, it will decrease that littoral boundary, but increase the one to the west where
But
your
that's where
boat lift
boats
is.
are coming in.
Right,
here.
yeah, so
So that makes it a straighter shot coming in.
Right.
I think it's a safer way of going, but
Well, we have two questions before us. One is to approve the positioning of the dock and the boat lift. And two, is the length of the boat dock itself.
Well, somewhat, I mean, from looking at the picture, the less length gives you more room, right? I mean, I'm not proposing, I'm not saying you should do that, I'm just saying, I'm just looking at a plan here, so as this shrinks down, it seems like there's more space that may not be important to you.
Just not enough to hold our crafts.
Right, yeah, I get you, no, I understand.
along here, just like this. Yeah, but then if she uses this side of the dock, she's.
I mean, I can kind of see from a traffic perspective that tilting it to the east or angling it to the east would be beneficial. But also the neighbors, I mean, you're pushing into your neighbor's littoral boundary and, but this is a public hearing,
Yeah,
potentially to have neighbors, you know, voice their opinions, although neighbors change and things get sold and,
Right, well, this is the reason, to the right of me, yes, to the right of me, the dock was not like that. It was straight at one time, but that's another whole issue, so,
and then further to the right of you, there's a boat that's basically
yeah, I don't know.
parked perpendicular
How
to
they got
the.
it in there, what they
Me
do.
neither.
Yeah, I know, I'll leave it at that,
neither.
you know,
Me neither, that's not our concern.
right. Mine-
Gary?
I just think that with a little bit of different configuration here, it's gonna be a much easier access for you coming in. It's gonna leave you more space on that right-hand side of your dock if you turn that tail left along the littoral line. And it's gonna be a lot safer for the people on the dock on the right-hand side of the property.
What about the length?
Length, it's a legal length. It's in configuration with all the other ones going around, they're going out. You know, it's not, being short, I think, would be more of a problem if you shorten the dock right off. I don't see a problem with the length. I would wanna keep my boat out further from that dock next to it, you know, and as you're going around that cove, you can see the next dock sticks out even further. If you shorten it up too much, it's not gonna. Then you shorten it back here, look now. Just to go out, the boat going out.
Frank, any feelings?
I can, let's see. If you do,
Someone speak up, I can't.
no, I'm sorry, if you do it parallel to the west side of the territorial line, then you can't use that left side of the dock at all, because you'll be on the other people's
Yeah,
properties.
correct, yes.
And you'll be using everything on the right side.
Which is
what
what
the
I'm
plan
trying to
is.
avoid, exactly. Which we've done for 30 years, you know, and I just figure if I'm gonna get a new dock, I'm asking to move it over a little bit so that we're not in their water space.
Looking at the water from your
Yeah.
land,
Yep,
you want your boat lift to the right of your dock or to the left of your dock?
exactly where it is now.
So it's to the left now,
To the left now, exactly.
and that's where you want to keep it.
My only issue is we'd like to bring a little spec farther out, because if we have a dry summer, sometimes we have to shimmy the boat off the boat lift,
So
'cause-
you're shallow.
exactly. It doesn't have to be to the end of the dock, but somewhere's in there where we could, my son can put a couple jet skis in the front, we could sneak a boat even in front, so,
And everything will be on the right side.
yes,
Or
correct, yeah.
the east side of the dock. And
Do we have the dimensions once the dock is, say the dock was put at the angle? And do you know what the dimensions of the dock from the littoral boundary would be at 40 feet?
We can scale it.
That
They have a-
I do not know, I'm sorry, yeah.
Yeah, he could,
What do you wanna know?
Gary could scale that and tell you about.
If you went with the littoral boundary,
If you, what's the space to the littoral boundary at the end of the 40 feet to the east and west?
okay, on one side, she's gonna have 9 feet, 10, 14 foot.
On each side?
No,
on the
you're gonna
east
have
side.
14 foot on one side, and you're gonna have 2 feet to 3 feet.
feet on the
other.
west side.
The west
the left
side,
side, she
the
said
left
she
side
doesn't
is
use.
far more open than the right side.
From the other neighbor's dock, right.
Right, and that's, the right side is the congested area.
Right. So navigation-wise, it would be better to build it parallel to the west.
Move it over,
Well, to the west line.
angle it more to the left.
Well, parallel to the west line.
Yeah.
And that would give everybody more navigation without changing the lengths or the sizes.
All right, before we open it up to the public, any other questions from the commission to the applicant? Jeff, anything?
No, the only thing I was gonna mention was Maureen's willingness to angle the dock if you found that appropriate, so
I mean,
it seems it's,
see what, yeah.
yeah.
We'll see, yeah.
Is that something that you think would be better or not?
I think it'd be okay, I just wanna make sure it's okay with my neighbor on the right
Right.
side. You know,
Okay.
That's why I'm, you know,
Yeah.
And you say your neighbor on the right side looking at the water? Or-
Left side.
I'm sorry.
Left side,
On the left
left
side,
side.
looking at the water, I'm
Okay,
sorry.
okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, no, it's all right, I get it.
No, I just,
I get it, I
Relax,
get it.
relax.
No, I'm good.
we're good.
You guys are great, you guys are great.
Any other questions or concerns? All right, my understanding is there's somebody from the public that would like to speak to this application. You want to come forward, introduce yourself, your address?
Jay Sullivan, 158 East Wakefield Boulevard, so we're the neighbors, I guess, on the left side or the right side? Where are you calling?
Let's be consistent, as you're looking
I'm
at,
trying to look at the picture back
west.
here, figure out what you're
as
talking
you're looking at the water, you're on her left or her right?
about. Okay, and so I'm speaking for a family, it's a family house, multiple people there, it's a bunch of people. So, and the Pizzanos, Maureen and her family have been great. They have used that side of the dock that's on our side for many years with a fairly large boats parked there. And so a lot of our family would like to have seen the dock move more towards the other side. Maureen's too kind, to be fair, the dock on the other side was replaced without a permit, and it's no longer in the position that you're looking at on the picture. It's closer to that littoral boundary. It doesn't have a deck at the end of it anymore, it's just a straight dock. So it tightens up that right side for her quite a bit. And so I could, she's kind of in a pickle there because she's between us and we have a boat on that side. And so when we put boats on that side, it's very tight.
Okay, all right.
So, I mean, they bang into each other, that's how close they are. We put a boat and Maureen's boat is over there, they're hitting each other. And it would be a challenge to get out at that point with the end of the dock where it is at the 40 feet from what it looks like.
Where it's drawn now, it
Where
would
it's
be.
drawn in this picture. I'm looking at it here. Maybe a little shorter it would work, but I think the big concern for most of my family is that it's not sort of in the center, it's very close. And so when you stand there, I mean, obviously when you stand there and look at it, you don't see the littoral boundary lines, you see
Right.
the end of your property and it kind of runs straight parallel with our dock, but it's right on the edge of the property line. So from a looks standpoint, anything put on that dock on that side ends up in our water, whatever you want to call it, which, and again, the Pizzanos are great, but nobody stays in a place forever, so they're concerned that, we have a bunch of people who, if somebody comes there, we try to decide to sell it, this is sort of, hey, is this your water, their water, there's a dock there, it's really hard to tell somebody you can't put a boat on the other side of their dock when they have a two-sided so I don't, you know, I feel bad because we're in this position, I'm sort of the mouthpiece for my family. You know, we're the next door to each other, but I also think it's a challenge that the other dock, in Mrs. DiMartino's yard is too close to the boundary. And it was reported at the time and nothing was done about it. I don't know if that can be changed, so.
So as it's drawn now, does that create more at the 40 feet, the way it's drawn, does that create more of a navigational hazard for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you have the dock where it is now, in the picture, it'll be harder to get a boat around the platform and around the backside of it.
And the more you turn it and the more you run parallel, which we were somewhat proposing, the more you run parallel to the left or west side, the worse that makes your,
The only way, I'm looking at pictures
yeah.
also.
Yeah.
The only way that could work is if the dock touching the land were moved over more toward the middle of the property, so that as it went out into the water, it doesn't cross over the littoral boundary at all.
Right, I mean, essentially, if you kept the end of the dock where it is in the drawn picture here,
Right.
but moved the base of the dock over to the center, and I think that would do it. The problem would be is where the dock on the other side is there, I think your boat would practically be touching her dock.
I think if the,
It would be very
well,
close.
I think if the length of the dock was there, I think we'd be okay.
And you could park in front of it,
Exactly,
right, you
yeah.
know, and
Yeah.
so that's another option. You wouldn't really be able to get around it very easy, but it would be.
If you went out 40 feet, Maureen,
Yep,
would you be out as far as his
No.
dock or not as far as your
no,
dock?
no,
Our dock's been there since.
Over there.
forever.
Was it eight? It's, yeah.
Is your picture any different?
What?
Do you have it any different than I do? Is it any different than this?
No.
So as this moves this way.
There's no dimensions here.
So she's proposing going out further. This is here, over here. This one's here. This is her dock with the boat lift, which is this and this.
And she wants to go,
It's a challenge on a piece of paper to see what, you know, real life is with
she
it. It's pretty tight.
she can't go here, it should be up here.
You know, one of your options, we're trying to, you know, move this along so it makes some kind of sense when we vote, is one of your options, because of the shallowness of the water, would be to bring your jet skis in front of the boat lift.
Correct, correct,
So they would be parked closer to the land,
correct.
but you're not asking for a jet ski lift or anything
No,
like that?
no, we do not have one, that is.
No, no, just-
Nope,
Okay, so,
nope, we're not asking for that, no.
and that would cut down your need to move further back out into the lake also, to an extent.
What are you saying?
Do we have any more time on this? I don't think so, only
Yeah, I don't
because
have-
this thing has been going back since March or April,
December.
December.
Right.
We're out of time.
That's okay,
Yeah, I would
but I
think so.
get it because you had your inland wetland agent, your secretary,
No,
Ian was
no.
wonderful.
That's not an excuse for
Lance
any
was
of our behavior.
wonderful.
The bottom line is everything's in the water already.
Yeah,
So,
well,
you know,
yeah.
we're just giving,
And I said to you when you came up, the dock was there since 1988. When I think about how long the boat lived, it's probably been close to 15 years, and it is not, it's an old crank one. You would ask if it was it's not automotive. There's no electricity running through my property. It is an old crank one, so, and we're keeping that one. That is not changing.
any other questions or concerns of the applicant or the neighbor?
I like the idea of moving the base, the part of the dock connected to the land in towards, closer to the middle of the property.
And keep it parallel
And-
to the
and
west?
Make it parallel to the littoral border. I think you can probably,
Right now, looking at the picture that I took, it seems to be parallel to the littoral border.
well, not on the map.
Not the,
That's the, yeah, the map doesn't sort of,
Yeah.
the littoral border looks like it runs right down that pipe. If
Right.
if you're looking
Right.
at it from the land, this picture shows it differently, obviously.
Well, I think that would, moving the base that's connected to the land, to the right,
But then again,
dock a little bit, this seems like it would open up a lot of area.
But then that decreases, you've only got 5 feet to your littoral boundary on the east side or the right side as you're facing out. As you pivot this over, it starts to decrease that, which maybe puts you in the same position you have with this neighbor with your other one, correct?
You
Is
can't
that
get 10
neighbor
feet on
present?
both sides.
No.
She is not, no, and she, I mean, she was notified, she got a letter,
No,
I
I'm
mean,
just curious.
public hearing, it's
This is-
knowledge for
this is
all the
the other
letters I sent
neighbor's
out.
dock.
You know, of course, when you move the boat lift over
Oh,
the
yeah.
littoral boundary, you don't
Yeah,
park
so
the boat
they
on the other
park.
side of the
The
boat.
littoral boundary's out here.
It gives,
Yeah, yeah.
it gives the space on the side of the dock for you to
Impossible.
park. She can even park jet skis over if it was moved over. You
Yeah,
can park-
exactly,
You could use
exactly.
both sides, you
Right,
could use both
exactly.
sides of the dock.
Exactly.
The boat lift closer to Mrs. DiMartino's might, it locks up that area, but you don't park another boat on the other side of it, kind of thing.
You're saying they don't, the other neighbor doesn't park their boat on the, again, their
No.
east
Yeah,
side?
she doesn't
I'm
park
sorry,
it.
their
No,
west
but
side.
That's not what I mean.
Yeah.
You know, if you have a dock and a boat lift, you don't park another boat on the other side of your boat lift, you park it on the other side of your dock a lot of times. So if you move it away from our littoral boundary, at least when the next people come in and buy the house there and they park their 6-foot boat in, they're pretty much in their waterway, not in.
Right, because they park it on the opposite side, in a sense, or you would,
You would, most people do.
which is where they have more of their, according to this picture or line drawing, to me, it shows that you have more, they have more space on their
Right, sir.
right side or
Yep.
east side.
Gary?
If you moved part of the dock that's against the property, towards the right, pivoted off of that 5-foot, we agreed on a 5-foot from the dock to the littoral line there,
Right.
you would end up with 6 feet on your side of the dock going down through. You'd end up with 5 feet on the other side of the boat lift to the
the other way.
littoral line on that side.
So that's to the littoral line, which you don't see, when you're looking out from your property, it doesn't show that it bends like that. You're looking at it straight out.
Straight out.
So it seems like,
So how much of a gap between the end of that dock and the platform?
You'd have 6 foot.
So that's the only other issue, is if the dock's 40 feet long and the platform's at 40 feet, we won't be able to get a boat
Okay,
between the end of that dock and the platform, so it can't be that long in order to get a boat through there to get
Yeah.
on that side. Because they're all, not all bigger than 6 feet most of
The unfortunate thing is you can't go much narrower on the other side either, because you're in somebody else's property, you only have 5 feet. You know? Are the docks on either side are they permitted docks?
Jay's is the only one on the other side that's not.
A lot of these docks in that area are, I'm gonna use the term grandfathered in because they pre-existed the ordinance. And anything that pre-existed the ordinance was allowed to remain unless you came in before us and wanted something, then we could bring you into compliance.
Right.
Right.
If he's silent on what he has, then what he has, he has.
The dock's been there since
And,
before I was.
you know, and that's,
I don't know, would I be grandfathered in if I wasn't gonna change the dock?
if you could show us a picture from 1980-something that the dock was there and the boat lift was there, then
I
yes.
went today to get a survey, and there's nothing,
I'm
yeah.
just-
I went today to look for any,
I'm answering your
yeah,
question.
I am, okay.
If you
okay,
could have proven to us that it pre-existed,
Okay.
then you wouldn't even be here.
So
I get it.
one idea then, it seems like, I mean, obviously this is a very challenging site. No matter what you do, you're encroaching on somebody else's lines. The decrease in length, although not great for the water height with the bottom of your boat, does start to solve some of these problems, correct? At least according to our scale, right, Gary? Because you,
Yeah, correct.
The shorter the dock going out in,
the shorter the length there, it gives you more room on the left side to this gentleman's.
To the littorals.
Right, for the littorals. You know, whether it's 10 feet or 4 feet or 2 feet is a little bit tough to determine. I mean, we can scale it off our plan, but is that something that'd be a thought for you?
Do you think you would want it on an angle? I'm just asking you while you're here, you know?
Yeah, I honestly, for me personally.
Right.
I don't think they would care as much about the angle. I mean, if the end of the dock was sort of straight
You're right now, you can, with difficulty, get your boat off and on the boat lift. With
The
difficulty.
water's been great this summer, the water's been great, but summers in the past, we've had to dig a little off because it's shallow there.
Are you, is your boat lift positioned to the as far end of the dock as it possibly can, where you could still get on the dock or on the boat from the
You
dock?
can look in your picture, but I'm gonna say yes, I think it is at the very end of the boat, of our, I think it is.
Yeah, you can move it out, so you had to climb in the front of the boat or something.
That's next door.
It's really a challenge there.
You know, we were just looking as Gary proposed something else. What about the idea of bringing the long length, the 40 feet, more parallel to the littoral boundaries, but flipping the dock to the other, or your boat lift to the other side? Does that
And
help
they'd
you
be-
any?
They'd be, she would be half on his property.
Right.
There's no room on that side, there's no clearing on that side.
You would be absolutely parking on his property.
And that's what I'm trying to.
No, we wouldn't entertain that.
Yeah, thank you.
About the same thing.
You're saying,
Put it over here. Put that over here.
oh,
I don't follow that, Steve. That made no sense.
You can park a vessel in the littoral boundary, but,
No, we're not saying that.
oh, go ahead.
Come here for a second. Step over here.
yes, you gotta look at it, yeah.
If they took this,
What I
Russ,
want now.
you put it over here,
Yeah.
ran it this way, ran this over here. Put the back over
It
here,
makes it look like this, right?
this. Absolutely. This way. You have plenty of access coming in for everybody.
What Gary is indicating is that if you were to move your dock completely, excuse me, to the opposite side of the property, away from, toward 146 or whatever the address is,
Right.
your 150, 148, so whatever the house,
Yeah, one
to
forty-four.
to your right, looking at the water, if you move your dock closer to that,
Parallel.
parallel to the littoral boundary, and put your dock on that side, and that would open up the space
Boat lift on the
on
west
his
side.
side.
That would open it up so you could come in with your boat, you can come in with your boat.
Like you said, there's no boat, you don't park there on the far side.
No, there wouldn't be anything
Plenty
on
of
the
room.
other side of the boat lift, no.
It does, this apparently looks, just in almost like layman's terms of how we're laying this out, it looks like that's a possibility, that may help you.
The Martino's dock that goes out, is she right on the littoral boundary with her dock?
Yes,
Okay, so that if your dock were adjacent to hers on the littoral boundary, your two docks would abut each other.
right.
You almost need one dock in reality. But that would open up all of the space on one side. Does that make sense to you?
It makes total sense, yeah.
What about the length of the dock now?
I don't think the length at that point in time is a big problem, because we can step it over. I mean, taking 4 feet off or 6 feet off, I don't,
Well, what she has now, Mrs. Dimartino, is a 40-foot, it's the exact dock I think Maureen's talking about, 40-foot steel dock, there's no pylon at the end of it
I think
anymore.
hers
It's
is
just-
wider than 4 feet wider,
Oh, hers
isn't
is
it?
pretty wide.
Yeah, hers is much wider.
how close could they go to the littoral line with the dock going on?
You know, Shore Drive and some of these properties, a lot of the docks and boat lifts are literally right on the littoral line, going in and
See two
out.
houses
She's got-
over from us on your map,
Yeah.
his dock's right on the
Right
water.
on the
Yeah.
And they used to-
Oh, one
And it's very common.
Yeah,
It's,
yeah.
it's not an uncommon
Yeah, yeah,
situation.
yeah, it is,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's Kurt's.
And you only end up, at the end of the dock and the littoral line, you end up with 20 feet. You know, 20 feet, taking away 14 foot of it, you know, you still gonna end up with a lot of space. Out at the end, you know what I'm saying?
Would we have it just drawn up? I mean, are we out of time as far as?
I think we're out of time. Not, not 7:35, not 7:35. Our commission has time restraints in terms of, you know, things of that sort, so, you know. The question I have, are we forced to make a decision?
I'd have to verify when it was actually accepted.
Well, I think she's saying in December.
Yeah, then
We have
it's pretty safe to say you're out of time.
Without pulling another permit, or?
Well, this is a IWWC 23 number, so it's gotta be January at least.
Yeah.
I think it was my January meeting, you did accept
And
the
then
application.
we missed
yeah.
February.
Right.
We have the meeting in February.
One of the options would, for you to consider,
Yeah.
is to withdraw your application, which would negate us, forcing us to make a decision. Because, you know, our role is not to design a solution for you. Our role is to listen to your proposal and see if it works. If your proposal were to change, then the approach from the commission would be looking at something very different. So that's one choice. You can withdraw the application without prejudice and refile the application with using the information that you've gathered from the public hearings and from the commission as to what might likely be a better solution. I think in reality, there's no harm, no foul, because you're in the water anyway,
Yeah.
and we're not stopping you from doing anything at this point. Is that something you would consider?
It's just hard for us to kind of vote on something that's not, we don't know exactly where it's going. Like, we kind of, usually we have plans of something and say, okay, this looks exactly the way it's going to be built or moved. So,
So then I would have to have my surveyor come back up and reposition it to,
I
he'd
think
be
you
able to
have-
do it on this drawing.
You have a
He wouldn't have to
legitimate
come up.
survey, so you
Okay.
could just reposition it
to
to,
the littoral line to the left of.
East
and
side.
again, it would trigger a public hearing again.
So I have to send
because-
all the papers back out again? Okay,
You'd have to do that again,
okay.
but, you know, the view from the commission might be different, you know. But again, you don't have to withdraw, you could
And if you vote no, what do I do then?
put another application in.
Okay, no, okay, that was just my
You know,
question.
I mean,
Okay,
you
yeah.
could start all over again with something different,
We're gonna do,
and that's not uncommon.
we're gonna flip-flop.
But you need all the dimensions of everything. It needs to show how many feet from the littoral boundary, how many feet from the property line, how many feet from everything else. Because that's the only way we can really tell.
Yeah, we're just going off the scale,
Right,
so.
exactly, no, which is what he, you know, he did his best, because I know he spoke to Lance a few times and to Pam a few times, he just wasn't sure what was what, so,
If you move that dock to the right-hand side
yeah,
And
and
flip-flop.
put it right on the boundary, if it was right on the boundary, with the rear line going out, all right? At the end of your dock, not the boat lift, the end of your dock, you would have 16 feet to your dock. You'd have the space from here to that column. Oh, yeah, that's plenty. Which would be plenty, so.
and flip the boat lift on the opposite side.
Yeah.
West side.
Correct.
And that would put the boat lift in the middle of your property.
Okay.
That's gonna be, you're gonna be touching marine stock then.
Well, that's why that's gonna start another whole fury, but I'll worry about that when it happens, you know? You know?
Yeah, I mean, looking at how the other, it just seems like in this area, you're almost you're forced into having these docks on a littoral boundary, and I would say, feel better with that than creating hazards, navigation hazards, right? I mean,
We're all very respectful when we come in and out of the cove, it's, you know, but I understand all, I understand.
Do you want us to take a vote, or do you want to withdraw?
I guess it really doesn't matter either way, does it? I guess I can withdraw the application, start over.
you're not really starting over, you're just drawing, well,
Yeah.
you sort of.
Redrawing.
No, I think we're doing that, we're moving in at least in the right direction, even though I know it's been very lengthy.
Well, it is what it is, I mean.
It's a tough
you know,
spot.
it's
If there was a
what it
quick,
is.
if
It
we
is,
looked at
and
this and it really made sense, we
I
would be,
just don't wanna be
voting.
the person that just tops it out and tops it in, that's just not me, I wanna be respectful to my neighbors, and that's it. You know?
no, we appreciate that.
And requesting 40 feet where you are now is a challenge for this commission also.
All right, so I guess I'm gonna withdraw, and then
Right.
what I will do is I will meet with you, and we can decide on something, and I can get in contact with my surveyor and get the right dimensions of what we need and explain to him. You'll be there to help me?
Yes, I will, as much as I can, and in the meantime, I am just gonna look into DiMartino's dock, just to see if there's a permit on file and if it's in the right
And
place.
she may be grandfathered into it.
If it
I
is,
have
there's
no
nothing
idea.
defined, so it's.
Exactly.
Is that a permanent dock? The dock on the number 144, that's not a permanent structure? They
That's
take
not
it out
what-
every year?
Doesn't matter, that's not why
Well,
we're here now.
That's sort of.
Just so you know, it's gonna trigger a public hearing again, because you're in the littoral boundary. Okay, so you're gonna have to meet with Jeff and work out all of the details of notification.
I saved, you know what? I
Save
saved
everything.
Saved
Good.
everything anyway, so here we go, everything's right here, so.
Okay, is there a motion to accept the withdrawal by Maureen Pisano at 148 East Wakefield Boulevard, the proposed 40 by 4-foot dock and boat lift?
I'll second it.
Okay, so all those in favor of accepting the withdrawal? All right, it's unanimous.
Great,
Okay, thank you very much.
And I'll be in touch.
Good, thank you. Okay, next item on the agenda is another public hearing. The owner is the town of Winchester, the applicant is Lance Hanson. The location is point location, new pavilion along the pond at Tetro? Petro Park. I'll be with you next. Lance stepped out. Okay, as I indicated earlier, we're gonna interrupt the regular agenda. And I'd like Tom Grimaldi, who is our representative for a rather comprehensive and detailed project at 212 West Wakefield Boulevard. Tom represents, is the engineer representing the town of Winchester on this proposal. So that, Tom, would you please talk to the proposal? And by the way, is there anybody here from the applicant side of 212? Okay, Tom, go ahead.
So I submitted my report on the 16th. I'm assuming that you all got the report. Went through the various steps, so in the last report, they had put the piers in and the upper walls, and all that was backfilled and stabilized. On this next section, they did the walls that were extending to the north in segments. So they did the first segment to the north, and they did the lower segment with the stairs, and they're working their way out. I just came from the site before I arrived here. The upper last wall, the uppermost wall adjacent to the pavement, that area's been excavated, the stone's been installed, the forms have been installed, the rebar's been installed, and they're gonna be pouring tomorrow morning fittings at 11 a.m. Other than that, I'm waiting on a report. Jim McTighe said that the lake bed specialist had been out there, and we're waiting on his report so we could see exactly what his conditions are and requirements for restoring the lake bed back to its original condition. In the end of my report, I gave you some bullet point items. So these are the next things that are gonna happen. Install the upper retaining walls, like I said, the footings will be poured tomorrow. And then within a couple of days, the forms will be on. The surveyors will probably come out, pin the footings. The forms will be installed, and I imagine, I can get a verification, but I imagine that they're gonna want to pour that wall later this week. did some cleaning, and my second bullet point, remove native material from riprap, slash boulders by pressure washing. They did some of that already, I was there, as I said earlier this evening. There's still a little bit more that needs to be done in cleaning that up. I'll have that conversation with Frank Lasky, the excavating contractor. I spoke with Jeff Rundini, and he said the lower wall, my item number 3 has to have the veneer installed on the lower retaining wall, so that's gonna be done before they can, remove the cofferdam. And then they also have to install the lower stairs that are heading down to the lake. That is probably the lowest point into the lake. So that has to be done, those are critical items, and the veneer on the lower retaining wall. Still waiting a report from the environmental lake bed specialist. I'll contact Jim McTighe tomorrow and see where that is. Once I receive that report, I'll take it, I'll meet with Jeff Rundini and Frank Lasky on site to go over the report so that I can make sure everyone's on the same page on what is gonna be, the criteria for completing that restoration.
Is that an independent, who is the environmental lake bed specialist?
He's an independent
Right,
individual
okay.
that we required as one of our conditions of approval when we reviewed the plans and specs and stuff.
Have, to date, has the applicant exceeded any of the language of what was approved in the initial approval back when?
Nope, we've
There's
been
no-
doing everything according to the approval and, everything to my satisfaction. It's actually been a very good working, environment. They've been very accommodating.
I agree.
So, I mean, I think they understand that, if I'm happy with what they're doing out there, everything's gonna keep moving, and they're gonna get out of the lake faster. So, it's been working out quite well.
Do you see any challenges for the lake bed specialist that he has to overcome?
I don't think so. I think the biggest thing, he's gonna have the excavator is gonna have to be sitting up top, he's gonna have to reach in with the bucket. It's most likely gonna be hand work, raking, shoveling, and they're gonna have to get all that, fines and sediment and debris out into the bucket. Then he'll have to pick it up and put it in the dump truck and move it on the other side of the road where they're storing everything.
And that's done before the cofferdam is removed?
That has to be done, yes, so, that is the item that has to be done, then after that would be, so removal of all the fines and lake bed directly upslope of the geotextile silt fence. Last thing, once I go out there and inspect all that, I'll probably be there that day. That's a critical path item, so I'll be there that day when they're restoring the lake bed, cleaning it up and restoring it.
Would
So
you-
I'll be there to ensure that's done in compliance with the lake bed specialist report.
Would you let Jeff know
Sure.
when that's gonna occur?
Yeah.
So that he would be with you?
Yep, yeah, I think that'd be a
Yeah.
good thing for him to do.
Thank you.
Gary, anything? No. Good? Anybody else?
Couple critical things I told them that needed to be done. Lots of times these guys like to go in, the divers, and cut the sandbags and dump the sand out. So they're not gonna be allowed to do that. They're gonna have to pull the sandbags out. There's probably 100 sandbags. Most of them are up by the retaining wall, just to the north of the
Well,
project.
that was the area that was violated.
That was the breach.
Right.
That was the area of the breach.
So you're saying it's standard practice in these situations to cut the sand, to leave the sand in place?
Yeah, lots of times they cut the bags and dump the sand out,
Right.
but,
Is that a stipulation? It's not,
We made
that's,
that.
Yeah, we made that
We-
stipulation.
right, we
yes,
made that.
We made it,
yeah,
yes.
Okay.
they had to be removed. So that's part of your conditions of approval.
Yeah.
So those will all be removed, and then, they'll slowly start letting water in. Of course, the big thing that I have to talk to the cofferdam folks about is how they slowly let the water in without creating any turbulent flow, so they're not, suspending any fines up into the water. We don't want a plume of fines in the water, so I'll have to talk to them about that. I think essentially what they do, according to Frank Lasky, is they shut the pumps down. They slowly start shutting the pumps down.
Water fill up.
And then the water starts to come in slowly, it starts to creep up towards the riprap. So So I'm pretty sure that's the way it's gonna be done, but I'll get a verification on that to make sure we're all on the same page and how that's gonna work.
Now, when I spoke to Frank a week or so ago, he indicated that he hoped to be out of the water working area by the end of June. Now, I saw a date from you, I think that it's more like the first week into July.
Yeah, I think I'd take a look at that. They gave me a date, to have, Jeff Rondini would like to have the coffer dam down somewhere between July 5th and July 7th.
Okay,
So by the end of that week, this is barring no,
Yeah.
issues with scheduling and getting the guys out there to put the veneer on the walls and getting the stairs in and make sure everything's buttoned up tight, so. And, that I don't know. I'll
Okay.
keep in touch with them and make sure. But in any event, I think the latest, the middle of July, this coffer dam should be out there. So, I mean, they really want it out because it's costing them a lot of money every month, so.
Any other questions or concerns to,
No, our major concern is just the lake bed primarily.
The lake bed. Yeah, I'm still waiting
restoration.
that
The
report.
restoration of it, we have pictures of it originally, what it's supposed to look like. All this gray riprap is not part of the program.
So, the riprap that was in there, I'd like to see those pictures. I don't know if, you have pictures when the coffer dam was installed and the area was dewatered prior?
I think,
Okay, so that I'll need to see, because if there's any riprap, I know there was some riprap and boulders in there. If there's any additional riprap that was placed in there, they can take it out. So if there's something that gives us an indication of how far from the coffer dam structure to the toe of the riprap slope, we have an idea how far that is, I can ensure that that's, completed.
everybody good? Just one request from me. I know we've spoken several times in the past month. If for next month, if we request that you be here, at least if your report gets into our package prior to it being distributed or picked up by
Yeah, it was
us.
a day late, huh, wasn't it?
Well, once we all pick up our packets, then we find everything else on our desk.
Okay.
And, it's there, it's complete, and I knew about it because we've spoken enough. Not everybody knew about what transpired. And if it were in our packet where the commission can look at it over the weekend ahead of time and be better prepared if should there be any concerns that they have. So if you can aim for like the Thursday before our next meeting.
Do you have a date for the next meeting?
Yeah, I'll
So
communicate
if
with
you
you.
could give me the deadline for the packets,
That's the point,
I'll make sure it's in the day before.
okay? And any reports that they generate, the same thing, that we'd like it in the package ahead of time?
Okay, so
All right.
I'll have to get that lake bed specialist report.
All right, Tom, thank you very much for your time. I appreciate you reaching out and being available to us and receptive to, talking with me in between. So thank you very much for all of that.
You're welcome, thank you.
Okay. Okay, thank you. All right, application IWWC 23-13, the town of Winchester is the applicant, is the owner, Lance Hanson is the representative, and it's for a proposal for a new pavilion along a pond on Tetrol Park. Lance? You wanna come forward? introduce your players and
Yeah.
who they are and.
So this is Nicholas Waters, who is an Eagle Scout candidate. This was a project that we proposed for the town. And we created some amenities for the park and some new products. And we, first time meeting, so that's why, and thank you very much for being willing to present. And, if we have any questions, I'm here. And then Tanya is our recreation director, she will also be available. Brian, obviously, too, so if you have any questions, so.
Okay, you wanna have a seat, gentlemen? And just tell us what you'd like to do and how you wanna do it.
We would like to build a pavilion at Catcher's Pond. I would like to see the town improve, and I feel like Catcher's Pond is a good area to improve the pond. The pavilion specifically will be 12 by 16 feet along the far side of the pond, viewed from the parking lot. So when you come in, it would be on the far side. Approximately 15 feet from the edge of the pond. And while in doing construction, we will be using silt fencing to prevent debris from entering the pond and prevent the area around the pond from becoming elephant in the way. As for the materials the pavilion is being built with, we will be using pressure treated wood, so it will be able to last and resist any weather conditions that may arise. We will be using asphalt shingles for the same reasons. As for the floor, we will be using gravel along a wooden trim along the edge to the gravel itself will be to extend slightly past the edge of the pavilion, and that is mainly to provide a base for the flooring, and to, if there is any runoff in case of rain, that it will be dispersed throughout the gravel and it will not splash, cause any mud or erosion, keep the base.
You're gonna build the base is just a, like a standard posts are just gonna go into the ground, no concrete, there's direct burial. The posts that go for this, right, so these would go down like a pole barn, just right down in the ground?
Yeah, we'll probably use concrete though.
Yeah.
Okay,
There will likely be concrete to hold it in place and make it more resilient.
sure.
As you can see in the picture, the roof will be in the style of a lean-to, and that is mainly to funnel runoff to the back of the structure, so to keep the front and sides open for visitors. As for the structure itself, it will be built into the code, and everyone working on the site will be required to use personal protective equipment, and in case of an emergency, first aid will be ready and fit.
Will you need to do any more excavation work in terms of, where you're gonna position the pavilion?
For the position that I would like to build it, there should be very little change to the ground itself, as it is very flat, dry, and from what I've seen, very good for building. However, there will need to be some minimal trimming of foliage around the build site in order to have enough room and along with above the structure to prevent things like trees or dead branches from falling on it and potentially ruining people.
Just so you know, a lot of that was taken care of on April 22nd with the Friends Group. They did a massive cleanup, they took out a few of those widowmaker trees that you just described by Nicholas. So that should hopefully not be an issue.
Any questions?
No, nice project.
Sounds like a wonderful project.
Anybody?
Well, it seems like as far as what we need to have in front of us, most everything's on our plan here.
Before we close the public meeting, is there anybody from the public that would like to speak to the project? Yes, come on up, introduce yourself, sir.
Brian Hosky, 29 Brook Street. My property is surrounded by Cape property. You said 15 feet from the water's edge or from where it slopes down? Because,
The water's edge.
so the water's edge, is that something you can move back further? Because that would only leave you like 6 feet before it slopes, you know, maybe 10 at the most.
I'm showing 30 feet on my,
Toward the pond?
yeah, I'm showing it's a setback, essentially a setback of 30 feet from the pond back towards the mountain.
Okay, so he had said 10,
15, right, yeah. But it should be about 15 feet from the water's edge, and the structure itself will run 12 feet past that. So from the water's edge to the back of the structure should be about
15, not 30?
27 feet. Does the water stay at at the same height all the time, or does it go up?
I do not currently have that information, but someone else here might.
Okay.
It goes up here.
The water
Hang-
level is
just a minute.
stable. Yeah, and actually when.
Just for
oh,
the,
sorry.
when you speak, for the record, introduce yourself.
So Lance Hansen, the water level is currently stable. The dam is actually in need of repair, but that would not increase the water level to a point where it would be an issue for the pavilion, where it's proposed. And we kind of picked, and you're gonna hopefully hear from Joe in a second, who is actually the surveyor. We picked kind of a in-between site, 30 feet from the edge of the water. We thought that was a pretty decent buffer, but obviously it could be variable either way. Joe will probably describe, once you go a little bit further, it does get into some wet soils. If you're a little bit closer to the edge of the mountain, there's some concerns, but in that 15 to 30 foot range would be adequate and be able to get emergency services in front of it and not going into the lake down the bank. So,
And the positioning of the pavilion will not prevent entrance and egress from the parking area and things of that sort?
nope.
Are your concern satisfied?
yeah, well, they can, they could push it back a little further, because you said 15 to 30. So it really depends on, you know, they go left 5 feet, they go right 5 feet, there's a perfect spot, for where they're planning on putting.
Any questions from the commission before I introduce another person? Want to introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, Joseph Wynot, land surveyor. So I did the plan for this young gentleman in the town. So I located the base of the rock slope and the top of the bank, which the vegetation just a couple feet below, what I'm calling the pond. So what I did was, I proposed it 30 feet back off the edge of pond from vegetation, to not encroach into the rock slope and kind of keep everything here to there. So if the commission here would like to have, I'll go out there and stake it out for the gentleman for construction, so that it is per plan, the way I have it. That's fine with me. I'll do that. I'll volunteer my time to do that for this project.
So my understanding from what just transpired is that you're shaking your head in agreement that the surveyor's staking points will be acceptable to the applicant?
Yes.
Lance? Okay.
Yeah, and we can maybe shift it a little left or right, depending on there's one tree that's in the way that's not on the plan, but
Well, if
where
you're gonna
it
start,
sits on the plan is,
if you're gonna start shifting it and nobody,
it's not gonna
Let me
shift
just
any
finish.
way to wetlands, in towards, or to,
what I'm gonna suggest is when you stake it out, that you meet with Jeff,
okay,
and
I can do
based
that.
on the survey, as to what the survey shows where it's gonna be placed, try to get as close or to the exact spot where the survey says it's going to be, so that if you have to move it for a particular reason,
let's say we have to move it a couple feet this way
or
or
a
that
couple of
way,
inches or whatever,
and Jeff can say yea or nay, or will,
it would be Jeff.
yeah. Well, I don't see no reason that there's gonna be a problem.
Anybody else with anything?
Be utilized and rebuilt, and there are improvements to, you know, get the water moving a little bit more in there, but it's a nice little park. It should be developed and used by the town. So I think it's a great project you've started, and I hope it gets built upon, that future work gets done there and the site gets developed, because it is a nice area, nice spot for our town.
All right, if there are any other further comments from the public or from the commission? Before we close the public hearing, I'd like to thank you for coming. I think your presentation was well received, and we understood it, at least I did. And you did a nice job in talking to us.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Is there a motion to close the public hearing? Second? All those in favor of closing the public hearing? Right? Unanimous? Okay, gentlemen, thank you very much.
Thanks, guys. Thank you.
Okay, going back to old business now, application 23-2, the applicant is Maureen Pisano, and it's at 148 East Wakefield Boulevard. And based on the public hearing comments, Maureen Pisano has withdrawn her application, so there'll be no need to take action on that. Is there a motion to, I guess, deny the application without prejudice? Is that the right way, or just to accept her withdrawal?
I think you could probably do it either way, just accept the withdrawal.
I'll make a motion to accept the withdrawal of the application 20-2 by Maureen Pisano. Is there a second? Gary, all those in favor? All right, it's unanimous. The next item of business is the vote on the public hearing we just closed from the town of Winchester. The applicant is Lance Hanson, and the proposal is to a new pavilion along the pond at Tatro Park.
Just a second, see.
Sure.
We did add Scott Bashan's application back in, and it appears before there, just keeping him in order.
Oh, okay.
He wanted me to let you know if
Yep,
you went
thank you
off.
very much.
Sure.
I'd like to defer for that, just because we're in the middle of it.
That's
We're
fine,
just
too.
gonna vote,
Yep.
and that'll be the end of it.
Okay.
On the application for the pavilion at Tatro Pond, are there any concerns that came out of the public hearing that we have to discuss? Is there a motion for approval?
I'll make a motion to approve IWWC 23-13 for the town of Winchester, applicants Lance Hanson for new pavilion at Tatros Pond. I don't think we need a bond or any.
It's a town.
It's a town, well, no, it's town, it's not, I don't think it's a big enough project, digging a few holes and whatnot to just put the posts down that we would need that, so.
Okay.
I don't think so.
Is there a second?
Second.
Gary? All those in favor of approving? Jackie? It's unanimous? Okay, thank you very much. Going back to the agenda, the amended agenda, thank you. The applicant, if the number is IWWC 23-3, the applicant is Scott Bashan. Creation of a rear pond, erection of a structure and a fence. The applicant is here. It's under old business, and we should take action on it. Do we have any more time if we don't take action on this?
No, time is expired.
Time is that? Scott, you want to talk to us about anything?
I don't know what you want to hear. Questions?
Just to review from my mind, talking out loud,
You were going to a meeting on Monday or to see about the farm status, and I missed that meeting with you. I don't know if you.
I thought you were supposed to bring us the documentation.
Well, I
of the
have
farm
that here,
status.
but we had talked at the last meeting, and I thought Steve was gonna go meet Lance at the downstairs.
I met with the assessors.
Right, and you wanted to be at that meeting, and I didn't come because I didn't get a phone call. I spoke to Lance after that. And
and for the public information, I didn't go either because I didn't get a phone call.
so we both didn't go.
Okay.
I have the farm status here if you wanna see it, from the state.
Lance, did you have that meeting?
So I met with, the two assessors, Monday after our meeting, to just discuss what we saw back in March, and the consensus was there wasn't farming going on in the property. Now,
There
Scott and
wasn't?
I had since talked,
Scott?
and he said that firewood would be considered an agricultural product, and that was how he got his state designation.
No.
So, that was
Wait a
not? Okay, then I'm wrong, sorry. And then, we'll get a little bit forward, but basically what the conversation with the two assessors was, this time they were gonna deny and tell Scott to reapply, basically when the application comes again in October. So I went out just before Memorial Day, and I went to Scott's property because he had mentioned that he had planted the Christmas trees and fruit trees, which would be two things we would consider for agricultural practices in product. I did confirm, Scott let me see the trees that he planted along the backside for the evergreen trees, and I did see some of the fruit trees that were planted and kind of documented the site, and that was essentially it. Now, as you may know, we're going to court tomorrow. Didn't know if it was appropriate to still have today's discussion or not, but I'm glad you are here, Scott. Because honestly, tomorrow's discussion is about the earth excavation.
It has nothing to do with
Right.
this meeting.
So the three things that you've been proposed for, with the pond that was created, the fencing that would be against the adjacent property owner, and then the building is a concern. If you may remember, it's a cabin slash agricultural building that's at the back part of the property that did not have any building permits. It was put up, whatever, 10 maybe years ago at this point. We decided we would not make Scott tear it down. That was the building official's decision. And this would be, we wanted Scott to come in and apply for the building permit for that building, which Bill would have to go through and inspect. Then he also wants to do the pole barn, which we honestly don't have an issue with. And his last was the house lot, to build a new home on the property. And that's what I thought you were gonna come in and talk to us.
Is there anything that you just brought up now that has to do with us at Wetlands?
Just the pond, the fence, and the building.
Okay, so all three of them still?
Correct.
Okay. And one of the game changes to what took place back in November was that the applicant now feels he has farmland status. And
We
if,
have farm status.
if the applicant is correct regarding the status from the state, but not from the town, then everything that transpired beforehand now becomes somewhat legal and acceptable if this commission deems his property as a farm.
Correct. So if Scott had the farm status in place before the pond was built, that would have been something an activity could have done really without having permission from this board.
Well, we know that he didn't,
Right.
so, let's not cloud the air. The pond and everything was done 3, 4, 5 years ago, within that time frame, and farmland status was just granted within the last several months.
2 years.
2 years, well, hang on one second. 2 years?
It's been 2 years. The first time I
Oh.
brought my farm status in, the girl you had downstairs threw it back in my face and said she didn't need to accept that. The second time I applied, my F1 was mysteriously missing out of my file. So I brought my tax papers in to show the people downstairs that I've paid taxes on my farm status, but that's not good enough for the town. In their eyes, they feel I wasn't farming enough because the hayfield I had out back had burnt up, which is now gorgeous, replanted, that'll be hayed this fall. And the mulch and the firewood and the compost are all agricultural activities. Now, Mr. Lance over here has taken a picture of my illegal sign because they won't give me farm status, so they hold back my farm status, so my buildings are agricultural buildings. What I'm doing is not agricultural. But on the sign that he took the picture of, that they're bringing me to court tomorrow for, clearly says mulch, firewood, compost for sale.
All right, let me try to clear up something that I was able to find out.
So court, Steve, I love going to court. So tomorrow, I'm excited about going tomorrow.
And I'm looking forward to having coffee while you're in court at home.
That's great.
But beside that, I personally met with the new town assessor.
Yeah. And it was her
Just let me
opinion,
finish.
her opinion.
Let me finish. I didn't interrupt you. All right, I personally met with the town assessor and discussed the thinking behind the town's position regarding granting you or not granting you farmland status when you came in several months ago and applied. There's no denial that you came in several months ago and applied. My understanding of the conversation I had with the lady was that there's a window when an applicant can apply to the town for farmland status. And if you're within that window, and I think it's sometime from September to the end of October, if you're within that window, then
I have it right here, Steve.
if you're within that window, the town would now entertain the application to grant the person, the applicant, farmland status or not grant it. Let me finish.
Go ahead.
Okay. You were denied, based on what I was informed of, farmland status because you didn't apply during the window that you're allowed to
I
apply.
absolutely did.
Okay,
I have it dated right here and stamped from the town manager's secretary.
then I was misinformed or you're misinformed. One of the two of us is right and the other is
Well,
wrong.
First of all, there was nobody in the assessor's office for weeks, maybe months. Then when I came in to file, the door was locked. Then when I came back, there was a note on the door to bring the stuff upstairs to the town manager's secretary. And she stamped it on the day I brought it in, and I have a copy of it here, and Lance has a copy of it also, because I had to bring my F1 back in. So whatever you got told is false.
Does that stamp say it took
It
place?
has the date right on it.
Is the date between September and the end
Yes,
of October?
October 26th, or I believe it was.
You have that here?
Yeah.
Okay.
And they should have a copy of it. Why do I have to keep bringing copies of things?
One of the problems that we have here, that I see, all right, as far as for the commission, you're kind of putting the commission in a tough spot. We're getting the town confused with the commission as far as our obligation for, if it was farm status with the town, okay, or farm status with the state, I'd even follow with the state. When you did your pond, okay, I just say you had all the right in the world to dig your pond. The problem is, you dug the pond prior.
Correct.
So, my feelings would be just to put an application in for a pond. Just put an application.
I did, they have it.
Okay, so that's what we should, me personally, we should act on that, not worry about this farm status. Not worry about the farm status. There's nothing here that we have to worry about farm status for. Number one, pond was put in prior to being a farm, even being a state farm. Never mind approved by the town. Number two, you wanna put a fence up, you come in, put an application in for the fence, where you're putting it in, you're putting that in. So, I don't understand where we're going with this. This problem with the dirt, the problem with the other things, you work that out with the town yourself, it has nothing to do with us. You're not taking it out of the wetlands.
I agree.
You're not taking it out of anything, okay? That is a problem you have with the zoning department right now. If under agricultural, all right, if it fell under agriculture, if you're doing it while you're a state farm, all right, while you're doing a state farm, you have good grounds to argue that, because in the state statute, you have the right to remove the soil. Okay, that is, that legally you do, to create cropland. Okay?
As a meadow.
A meadow,
Correct.
grass, orchard, whatever. You can't fill wetlands, which I didn't see where you went and filled the wetlands.
I don't wanna fill the wetlands, I've created them.
And that's the next thing. I mean, this board here should be excited for the fact that you built a pond. Okay, that's what we're all about.
And I cleaned the swamp out. and I had a permit for that. And I have a permit to do the one on the other side of my driveway, but there's some
When
issues
you say
there.
clean a swamp out, what does that mean?
It was a pond, a farm pond,
Right.
and I dredged it out. It was 6
Okay.
inches deep. So Army Corps came out. You were on the board when Army Corps came out. Jackie was on the board when Army Corps came out. When Steve Sadowski was here, they didn't have any bad rapport. Steve lied to them to get him there. So DEP's been to my place 3 times, no bad rapport. Army Corps has been here 3 times. I have an email in here from the last time Pam emailed the DEP, and they said, at this time, we're not interested in coming back out to Scott's anymore. He's not doing anything wrong. Would you like to read that? I have that in here too.
Would you read it into the?
It's harassment,
Would you
is
read
what
it?
it is.
Would you read it into the record, please?
No, I'm not gonna read it into the record, I have a court date tomorrow, Steve. So, the land thing, the dirt thing has nothing to do with, like you said, what's going on here at the wetlands. So I don't know how it
So
gets,
you've applied for, our application is for a pond, it is for a fence, you know, I think we act on that, I don't think, it's an existing pond, we're not gonna have it filled in, I don't think there's a, in my eyes,
I see what you're saying. I mean,
It's a
I do.
pond. It's a-
Unfortunately, all this, we have this whole, a bunch of stuff that's happened before this that we don't have unfortunately control. There's been a long history here.
but he
of-
can't come in here, state and farm status, and I have the right to dig the pond in the building, you know, for agricultural and stuff like that, when he did it prior to even having a state permit. If he had his state permit in place at that point in time, I'd have just, I'd just say, hell, but you are in here looking for your permit.
It's clear.
yes, that's what I'm here for.
It's clear that he didn't have the farm
Correct.
status.
But I'm not denying that,
Yeah.
Steve.
So he's in here looking for a permit for what he's got.
I'm
and
trying to
a
clear it
permit
up.
For putting a fence up.
In conjunction with having now the state permit.
Correct.
Right.
Right. You've got your state permit with you?
Yeah. What's that?
Yes.
While you're looking, Jeff and Lance,
I know you're gonna ask me. I did talk with Kevin Nelligan today, and he said you can make a ruling.
we can make a ruling tonight. Okay.
They're apples and oranges in a way. It's just unfortunate it's all the same players.
I don't think court's a big deal tomorrow, Lance.
All right, for the record, just tell us what you're giving us.
Tax ID, farm.
Farm tax ID.
That's from the state.
Correct.
Yep.
This was issued in 11/4/22, Avery Farm, 261 Torrenford Street.
That's my address.
What's that?
That's, I have farm status on my property apparently, not his.
Oh, I'm just reading sales and use permit.
261 Tarford Street is my property.
Scott, all right. This is,
I believe it says 259 on the top.
yeah, well, it's crossed out and written 259.
Just for the record, the document that I'm looking at is a Department of Revenue Services tax permit, and it's issued to the applicant, Scott Bashand, under Avery Farms. And the address, handwritten, is 259 Torringford Street, Winsted, Connecticut, where everything else is typed in. So the address is scratched out, and 259 is imposed.
I just got a recent address from Lance.
And again, on the bottom where it says tax permit, sales and use, the original address on Torringford Street is not legible, but 259 is written in place of the Torringford Street address. According to this, the address for Scott Bashand is 261 Torringford Street. There's no address listed on the original application. Do we know the original application that Mr. Bashard submitted?
Correct. So if you notice on the survey, it'll say 261 because
Right,
that was incorrect.
right. That was not my doings, but like Mr. Steve's thinks it was. That was a town,
Not Mr. Steve Molinelli.
no, Mr. Steve back here,
Okay,
my neighbor.
okay. Well, you're showing us something which I don't know how much credibility it has, because everything is
You can
typed.
go on the state
Let me
farm
finish.
guide and look me up.
What I'm saying is what you're handing me doesn't have any credibility in my eyes, because the address is crossed out and a different address is imposed. So I'd like to return this to you. Do you want to take a copy of this
He
and
has
give
a
it back
copy
to the gentleman?
downstairs.
Pardon?
They have a copy downstairs.
Could you get a
And
I'll
copy?
take a
of that?
copy for our own file, just.
Okay, so I'll return that and we'll give it back to you in a moment. All right, where do we want to go with this? We want to take a vote on approval, disapprove? We're going to vote to approve, depending upon the vote, we'll approve it or disapprove it.
Well, my whole thing here is, how do you disapprove a pond that's in place? That's
Oh, it's
virtually.
an illegal pond.
We're gonna do it in illegal ponds.
It's an illegal pond. You know, do we want to give?
We can make it legal right now by voting to accept the pond as built.
I mean, I would say from being to the side, I don't know what you'd possibly do with it if, I mean, it's been built, what would you change with it? Right, I mean, you wouldn't drain it, right? I mean, if we're gonna approve it, there's no, I don't see another alternative that's viable from a wetlands perspective to what would, if you don't approve it, where does that, this just leaves it in limbo?
Think about this, if we approve everything that's illegal that
Right,
we know
oh, yeah.
about without a remedy, then we might as well stay home every night,
Right.
you know, so.
Well, that's true, Steve.
And I'm not saying we should or
You know,
shouldn't approve
it's
it.
no worse than when we caught you dumping oil barrels in the river and nothing got done about that.
You're referring to the you, who are you referring to?
Referring to this guy right back here.
Okay, thank you. In the
Geez,
back.
that was something, huh? Glad I didn't dump oil in the river.
All right, so we have a choice. There's gonna be a motion to approve. Depending upon how we vote, it's either approved or disapproved. Jeff, before we vote, any feeling?
I haven't seen the pond. I went to the site 3 or 4 months ago. I got to the top of the hill. I did not go down, so I can't comment on the condition of the pond.
Why didn't you go down?
Oh, it said no trespassing to start with, but I went
Well,
past that
that's a good
sign.
indication that you shouldn't even enter the driveway.
Exactly. So I got to the
But-
top and I
but
thought,
everybody has.
eh. So,
Well, you said we
So
would
I
be
don't
able to
know
go
the
look at
condition
it,
of the
right?
I invited Lance up many
Yeah,
times.
yeah. No, I mean, I drove down,
You saw the pond?
yeah, I went to it. I thought you had approved everybody to go there and take a look at
No
it.
more.
That's it, it's the last time I get to see it?
That's all you get.
Well, at least I have fond memories.
All right, Jackie, any feeling?
I'm not sure what we would be approving.
Well, what we would be approving would be
What was
the
the pond?
creation of a pond that was created 5 years ago, and the erection of a structure and a fence that were all created prior to the applicant making an application. So we would give credence to something that was done illegally, without a permit.
But the
That's
town.
what we're approving.
Right, and
So-
the town, hold on, please, the town has, from a building perspective, Lance, the town has said the structure, are there any stipulations on changes with that structure, or that
Not at this
structure
time.
is
So-
gonna stay there?
It's, the only thing it would need is a inspection by a build vector base, and that was if Scott Bowles a building.
That's all gonna be on one application. So I'll have my prints this week for the house, the barn, and then I can file that.
Hi, Jeff, I know it's premature for you. Any feelings?
I've let Lance continue to work on this one, just getting into town and working on all the new stuff and some of the old
No,
stuff. I didn't take this
I
one
hear you.
over.
Lance?
And I think that's valid that you said that, and I said last meeting, Scott, you're stuck with me, sorry. I know you've dealt with a lot of staff over the years, we're gonna see this
Every
through
year.
one way or another.
I'm not,
And I gave you guys a report at the end of March that I said the pond, in my opinion, was done very well done. I don't think there was any negative impact to the wetlands or the Mallory Brook system with that. I understand completely what you're saying, it happened. We don't want that to just be the case where people do stuff and they come in for approval after. I absolutely understand. Second thing, the fencing, that will only be approved saw it from the outside, it looks stable. They use it as kind of a cabin, somewhere place to go. Yes, probably is storing fish food for the pond, may have some agricultural practice to it, but until that is resolved, I wouldn't necessarily consider, I think you should apply for a building permit and get that legal, which is what we'll be moving towards. So, with those three things for your application, as you know, this has been going on a long time, so it's a gut reaction almost at this point, what you feel you can do.
And moving ahead, you are looking at putting a house on this property, correct?
I have a text on my
Or
phone
what?
I could show you.
Yeah,
right
no,
now.
no, I'm
My
not- I
blueprints
mean,
will
I
be
think-
done this week.
Moving ahead, because we know that the site is gonna be developed one way or the other, that
Exactly.
you would have additional wetlands identified depending on where your house is gonna be, that as long as,
That was on the last survey. Yep.
that was done on the last survey.
Well, the house would be added to it.
Right, the house would be added to it, that you do, there is continual, in a sense, eyes on the property, right, because he's going to be doing additional building there.
Well, the wetlands becomes an issue if you're 100 feet or closer
Right.
to them. So there's 1,000 feet between the wetlands and where my house is going.
Any other comments or concerns on the part of the commission?
It's 65 acres.
All right, just
It's
so-
not 2 acres.
Just so we're clear, we're gonna make a motion to approve, and if you vote to approve, it will move ahead. If you voted not to approve it, then in effect, you're denying the approval. Any
And is there
question?
and we don't have, anybody has not proposed any alternatives to, if you don't vote for it, that what would be the
It would be
outcome?
denied.
Right,
It
just
would
be
be
denied.
denied.
And where does that leave us, Steve?
That when you have farmland status and you come before us again, everything that we've denied now is looked at differently.
Oh, after I get farm status?
Yeah. From the town.
Well, I don't know how long that's gonna be. That may be,
Steve,
that may be a
that-
court
that-
case.
Yeah.
Hang on.
I thought we were waiting for him to show us he had state farm status in the last meeting.
I didn't see anything at the last meeting that showed us State Farm
No,
status.
You
no.
have copies of it in the assessor's office.
I have nothing.
Do you have a copy of the state, I mean, we had a
That's what he
tax
was supposed to
copy?
bring this meeting.
Right, you had
Yeah.
a tax, well, but the tax one, we said, we weren't sure about the credibility because of the,
It was altered.
it was altered.
They have it
Is
in
there
the
another
office.
document?
They have a new F1.
Right.
It's all in a, well, Lance saw it, I believe.
Is there I guess my question, and maybe Lance can test this, maybe you can, because you've dealt with these projects. So there's a tax ID number on something. Is there also another document that says, actually this is the farm status, right? Aren't there really usually two documents? One is a tax document, one is a official document that says this property is a farm status. That, we have an altered tax document, and I'm not saying there's anything nefarious with it, I'm just saying it has some, is there a document that can be produced that says the state has given this property with the right date on it, the status of a farm? Do you have that?
He has it in his folder.
Lance, do you have that? Right, but is that, do
You have
you
it.
have
So,
that?
so the answer is yes, and the
Okay.
assessors have it.
Okay. then-
Well,
If the answer is yes, then that is
They
significant.
didn't approve it for town's farm status.
Right, I have state farm status.
Right, okay, that's what I was just trying to.
They took it upon
acknowledge.
themselves to say I wasn't farming enough.
I think in my conversation with the assessor is that the documentation that you could provide based on your testimony that you planted 1,000 trees and something else, that the town will grant you farmland status. Again, so long as you
She
come in.
offered me that for this upcoming season.
I said that to you, that's
Right.
what I'm saying.
When it
Will
should have been
grant-
approved last year.
Again, should have been, would have been, she will, based on what you
Well,
now
those are
have.
just people's, she came up and looked around and said I wasn't farming enough, Steve. What's farming enough?
I think my conversation was that you didn't show her evidence in a timely manner. What you said,
Well, she must have missed the 4-acre wood pile that I
what you
cut
said
firewood
you did
on.
was after the fact. All right,
It just goes on and on.
and then we're gonna end it right now.
I don't wanna argue with you.
Is there a motion? Is there a motion for approval?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve application, I'm sorry here, application IWWC 23-3. The owner is Scott Blanchard?
Bashard.
Blanchard, sorry.
Bashan.
Sorry about that. The location is, just for the record, what is the exact location of this property?
259.
259 Torrenford Street, the creation of a rear pond, the erection of a structure, and a fence. Is that a second?
I second.
Okay, all those in favor of approval signify by raising your hands. 1, 2, 3, 4. Jackie?
I'd say,
I'll deny. So motion passes 4 to 1 and 1 abstention. I don't know if we'll see you in the next several months, but good luck to you tomorrow. Good luck to the town tomorrow.
It is what it is, Steve.
Okay, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
so much about.
Okay, the next application is 23-15. The applicant is Katrina Korolov, and it's Atlas Technical Consultants.
Steve, again, with the slight edit, Robert Bates was brought back onto the
Okay.
agenda.
Oh, right. Robert Bates?
Robert and Tracy, my mistake.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone.
Hi.
I'll start.
Just very briefly, I think we've
Very
gone through the
briefly,
scenario.
My application was accepted last time. It's for a jet ski lift, and I'm looking to utilize the lake as a water source for sprinklers. Additional information was requested. I forgot to put the measurements of things on my waterfront on the diagram, so I've submitted that. And I also provided more detail regarding installation of the sprinkler system. And what's most important is that although the water source is the lake, the lake bottom will not be touched. It's about, in the area where I'm looking to retrieve the water from, the depth right at the seawall is in excess of 4 feet. And the input, I don't know the technical name, the pipe where the water's coming out of the lake is just gonna be coming off the seawall. I know I'm pretty boring compared to the evening so far. I can't make this any more exciting.
That's okay.
Well, I visited the site, and I think Mr. Bates is describing what he's saying. The property has the ability to sustain the jet ski lifts, the width of the property. It's not within the littoral boundaries, so there's no concern about that.
No.
The matter of the pulling the water out of the lake, I think that's something that's done frequently. I thank you for applying for it, but it's done frequently. Any other concerns? Anybody? Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve application IWWC 23-14 to Robert and Tracy Bates, 428 East Wakefield Boulevard, double jet ski lift, 3-foot walkway and use of lawn for sprinklers. I don't think we need a bond for this or any other stipulations. Anybody else have? There's not any digging here, or very minimal digging. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor of approval? It's unanimous? Okay,
Thank you very much.
thank you.
Have a good evening.
Take care. All right, next item on the agenda is 23-15, Katrina Korolov and the Atlas Technical Consultants. The application location is 115 Main Street, and it's the Cumberland Farms project. And the request is to remove underground storage tank at gas station.
Correct.
For the record?
Good evening, Kevin Noel. I'm with SRS Petroleum. I'm the contractor who will be performing the tank removals and the site restoration at this location. We presented last month. We are, Cumberland Farms is relocated, so they want to take the 3 8,000-gallon double-wall fiberglass underground tanks out. They want to remove the 4 existing dispensers there. All the underground double-wall piping will be removed. Tank closure sampling, environmental sampling will be collected to confirm that there hasn't been a release of petroleum products to the location. If there are, then Atlas will oversee the cleanup and will work with the Connecticut DEP on the cleanup. We'll also be removing the steel canopy that's there. We will not be doing any type of demolition to the building. All we're doing is moving the canopy, the dispensers, and the entire underground fuel system. After everything has been proven to be clean, not petroleum impacted, everything will be backfilled to subgrade, and then bituminous will be installed to restore the site. And then that's the end of the project.
How much time do you need?
It'll probably take, we'll get the tanks out and everything in 2 weeks, and then once we determine, there's probably a 14-day turnaround time on the samples. Once the samples come back clean, we're given the green light to basically finish backfilling. We'll backfill up to grade when the tanks are out to make sure there's no safety hazard of open, holes or anything like that. And then after that, then we'll be able to pave. So it'll probably take, with paving everything from start to finish, about 6 weeks.
6 weeks.
Yeah.
And as I remember, there was gonna be a stockpile on the property of material pulled out, and one of our
Correct.
stipulations was to have that, not really silt fencing, but didn't we talk about something around it?
That's right. We'll the one boundary, the rear boundary, where there's currently a retaining wall, and on the other side of that's pretty steep, it's pretty significant down to the stream. We'll put hay bales along that area there, but nothing's getting through there because it's a casted place concrete wall. But we'll put hay bales in there just to make sure nothing goes that way. And then any of our soil stockpiles will be covered with 6 mil poly, and then straw wattles we put around us. So that's really the only type of erosion or anything like that that's gonna take place.
The only thing I'd add is I'd like, before you actually close up permanently,
Yeah.
that Jeff see the report, that all the contaminants, if there are any found, have been remediated, and you
Sure.
can close it up?
Yeah, Atlas will put together a tank closure report, and that'll include all the work that we did, sketches of where the tanks were, where the soil samples were collected, and then all the lab data associated with those closure samples will be presented also.
And those are presented to the town, or they'd be presented to Jeff?
Okay.
I mean, they're presented to what, to the owner usually?
The owner gets it. A lot of times this goes through the fire marshal. The fire marshal has a lot to do. Fire marshal in situation of underground tank removals is kind of the eyes and ears of the DEP. So if they see something, we have them come out. A lot of times they witness the tank removals, and if they see some petroleum impacted soils, then they'll recommend, and it's our duty as the contractor to notify the DEP if we do come into and see any visual or smell any petroleum impacted soils. We just did a job similar to this in Torrington a couple months ago, and the DEP rep was on site with us. They're starting to do that a little bit more. Back in the day they wouldn't do that, but they're starting to show up to more of these tanks.
When are you proposing the beginning of this project?
That was gonna be a question for you. If I get approved today, is there a time period where I have to wait before I can pull the trigger on starting this, or?
Once you're approved today, just let Jeff know when you're starting,
Okay.
and you can move ahead.
Yeah, so basically it would be probably a week or so. We'd have to do call before you dig, get all the utilities, underground utilities in the area marked out, and then we could start. They're anxious to get going because the tanks are beyond their useful life, so they need to know.
Do we need a bond?
I would think we should put a bond up there.
Yeah, probably something, yeah.
How much?
The river, it's close.
How much?
Couple grand?
How much?
Couple grand?
2,500?
I'd say all of that. Yeah.
More?
I hear
I'd say I
three.
would be up in the neighborhood of $3,000-4,000 myself, just to make sure.
All right, we'll impose a bond of $4,000, which you'll have to post
Okay.
to the town. And after you complete the project, then you get clearance that it was done satisfactorily, you'll get the bond back by requesting
In
it.
case there's any leakage
Okay.
or any signs of leakage.
All right, there are motions for approval?
Just so you know, that's a
A question, the excavated,
That's a CAD console, it's a check, and then you check back?
yes.
Thank you.
What's that?
the excavated materials will be removed?
Excuse me, I didn't hear your question.
Any excavated material will be removed?
Any excavator, so the tanks are a certain volume, okay, it's the volume of air in the ground. So any of the material that we excavate will go back in the hole, and then there's actually material that we're gonna have to, clean material bring in to take up the volume of the tanks. So no material will go off unless we feel it's been impacted by
Contaminated.
petroleum impact, contaminated. We're gonna actually, it's an import job, we'll actually have to bring, about 120, yards of material in to take up the volume of the tanks that we're removing.
Okay, is there a motion for approval?
You'll make a motion to approve, application IWWC 23-15, for Atlas Technical Consultants for the owner is Cumberland Farms, 115 Main Street, removal of underground storage tank and gas stations. We've stipulated the conditions of, having, what do we call them, wattles? Wattles around any containment piles, and, the other stipulation would be a $4,000, construction bond to the town of Winsted before, work is started.
Second. Is there a second? Gary? All those in favor of approval? It's unanimous? Okay, thank you. Thank you. Good night.
What office are you in? Land use right down there.
Next application is 23-16. It's the town of Winchester. David Batista, representing Haley Wood Incorporated at the location is 118 Colebrook Road, and it's the rehabilitation of a sewer pumping station number 2. For the record, identify yourself, please.
David Batista, Haley Ward, 140 Willow Street, Winston, representing the town of Winchester.
Okay?
Do you want me to plug back in? And
No, not
Okay.
unless.
Okay.
Accompanying Mr. Batista is Jim Rollins from the town.
Yeah, Jim Rollins, Public Works Director, town of Winchester.
Okay, I don't think when you left last month, there was anything outstanding that I was aware of or made any,
I think the only thing that we worked on was the, little more detail for the bypass pumping.
oh, right,
Frank had asked about that.
Yeah.
So we just put together just a quick narrative. The narrative complies to both pump stations, and then we also have a plan showing, some of the details on it that's separate for each one, because the sites are a little bit different.
So the document you're handing out it will be useful for both applications,
Yes.
but it doesn't apply one to the other.
The first page applies to both, and the second page is specific to each location.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so if you want to skip over the memorandum part of it for just a second and look at the two drawings in the back, those are plan views of the two pump stations, and
Please, David, just limit your talk to this pump station.
okay,
Okay?
this is number Danfield, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Two, we're doing number
All right,
2.
So we'll talk only about Danfield. That will be the second plan view. But as Jim mentioned, a lot of the things we've talked about in that memorandum apply to both, because they're essentially the same process. So we identified 2 alternatives to bypass sewage. We have to bypass sewage, it keeps coming, no matter what. So it's always there and coming at us while we're trying to dig in the ground and take something out of service and put something new into service. So we have to deal with it. One option, and the preferred tapping sleeve and valve. And that is something that you can do live. You strap a sleeve around the outside of your force main, and it's got a drill bolted to it, or a valve bolted to it, and the drill goes through the valve and takes out a coupon out of the force main, and pulls it out, and you're able to pull the drill out, close the valve without having sewage spit back out at you if the pump is on. And then from there, the town would keep that valve closed and plug into it with new piping. And this is only piping of 20 feet or 30 feet, however, the most expedient path we can find to tie the force main back, the new force main into the old one. And then just plug it in and get the rest of the pump station set up. Hook up all the wires, make sure the alarms are set, the float switches are set at the right elevation. And then when we're ready to test the pump station, we can turn the valves off in the existing station and open the valve in the tapping sleeve and valve that we just put in and run sewage that way. And then when everything is up and running, the pump station's good, then we have a piece of force main from the old, where the new tapping sleeve is, back to the old pump station that we have to deal with. And that has to be taken out. So there may be a point where we have to have a brief shutdown where the entire force main has to be drained. And so that the town can take out some old piping that's no longer needed, and if it were left in place, would be under pressure and could potentially, a potential leak in the future. So we would have to shut everything down, drain the force main out, and connect the new force main back into the old force main, and go. While that's happening, that brief shutdown, Jim and his crew would have to have their vacuum truck at an upstream manhole and just suck in sewage as it's coming, so that it's not coming through the station.
And that we would probably do at night during low flow operations, and especially in the fall and the summer where your groundwater is low, your infiltration is low, your flow is gonna be low, and we can manage it. Worst case scenario, you couldn't manage it for some reason, there was a big spike, you just have to close the valve and start over again. You know, it's not like it's gonna be a leak out into you.
How long will that part of the project take?
Oh, it could be a fraction of an hour, or it could be a couple hours.
Yeah, it goes fairly quickly if,
You just gotta be set up.
we'll know by that time, everything will be dug up, so we'll be able to pre-plan how we're gonna make final connections, make sure we have the right fittings there, and it's just a matter of cutting and bolting everything back together.
In the best case scenario or the worst case scenario, will it impact on any aspect of life of people that might be affected by this drainage problem?
No, it's gonna be a very isolated shutdown for just a very short time. And there's enough capacity between the vacuum truck, sucking it out into its chamber, and the volume of the pipe and the volume of the chamber, we can shut off the other pumps. There's a reservoir there that should give us more than enough time.
Okay. When are you proposing this?
This fall.
Yeah, probably in the fall, when the pumps come in.
The pumps are scheduled to arrive in July. We're working on finalizing the contractors for the actual site work, and, once we get everything in place, just dotting your i's, crossing your t's, choreographing the whole job so it flows smoothly. And, we expect it to be operational by, September probably.
Frank? Frank, anything?
Only that all the valves are the correct sizes.
Yeah, well, that's the beautiful thing, is we can open it all up ahead of time, get measurements, have all that stuff in stock, and,
Yeah.
and our
That's the
plan is
key.
to do, Danfield has got less flow to it than the one in front of the sewer plant. So we're
Danfield is number 2 that we're talking about now.
Right.
So we're gonna do that one first, because you got just more flexibility if there's a problem. We run through it, that'll be our dry run, then when we get to the other one, it's gonna be like a well-oiled machine, and, the fact that there's more flow, we should be able to compensate for that with experience.
Any Anybody, anything else?
You have two Vector trucks right now? You have the old one and the new one, right?
Yep.
So you would have,
You'd
just
have a
in
backup.
case, you have a backup.
There's one
In
got
case
four,
a
you
piece-
can start the other
Yeah.
one.
No, I'm just in
It goes
case
on and
another
switches
piece of
around.
equipment goes down.
And one of them, you're only a few hundred feet away from where the dump point, and the other one is
So
less than
you
a
could
mile away.
refill the first truck
Yeah.
if
Well,
necessary.
even if it breaks down, you have something. I mean, things always.
Yeah, yeah. There's a lot of redundancy
Done,
built
isn't
into
it?
this
Good.
plan, so.
Good. Okay.
Any other concerns? Is there a motion?
I will make a motion to approve, IWWC 23-16 to the town of Winchester, for Alley Ward Incorporated at 118 Colebrook River Road for the rehabilitation of a sewage pumping station number 2.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Gary, all those in favor of approval? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is pumping station number 1. The number is 23-17, and it's pumping station number 1 on North Main Street. We use the same document you
Yes.
just gave us. You want to
Yeah.
talk to us about it now again, David?
Yes, if you refer to the sheet for pump station,
One.
number 1, you'll see the sewage treatment plant, and our pump station is right along North Main Street, in the middle of the drawing, in the upper half of the, picture. And it's the exact same story, the town, their first option will be to install a cap receiver valve and connect back to the new pump station, new piping, and play the alternating valve game to get the pump station up and running. At times, the new pump station will be running while it's being tested, at times it will be shut down for adjustments or whatever, and the old pump station will be, continue to operate. So that is the preferred option, and the alternate to all this is the second option, in which we would have to basically put a sump pump in an upstream manhole, which is over on the right, and pump all the way up the driveway of the sewage treatment plant, overland with overland pipe, and discharge it into the inlet of the sewage treatment plant in the upper left corner.
That's our second choice because, A, it's significantly more money, and B, your piping, you just have more chance for some kind of a leak, especially when you're pumping it right over the bridge, over the Stowe River. So that would be our distant choice. We really wanna go with choice 1.
You see the obstacles to not being able to do choice 1?
No. We don't, but we wanted to have a redundant, option if we miss something. We don't really know everything that's going on in the ground there, or where all the pipes are going in the ground. That will be exposed when the town starts to dig. So once we see everything laid out in front of us, then we'll be able to figure out how to do this.
Well, you figured it out already.
Sort of, yeah.
You know
Based
the
on what we
concept.
know.
You know the concept, it's just the details.
You don't know which parts we
When
need.
we actually get in there, we could have 6-inch pipe, not 4-inch pipe, or come with some silly thing like 5-inch. You just don't know. So all those details, those finer details will be worked out when we excavate, and then we'll generate our plan. And if we don't feel comfortable with plan A, then we'll have to do plan B. But we always want to have a backup plan because we always want to be ready, so.
Fine with me.
You good?
Yeah, I'm good.
Anybody? Jackie?
I make a motion to approve, in the Wetlands application 2317 to rehabilitate sewage pumping station number 1.
Second? Okay, all those in favor of approval? It's unanimous.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. Good luck with the project.
You gonna stick around for a few minutes?
Was it show and tell?
Want a liaison?
All right, we have new business now. Applicant is James Pagano, 840 East Wakefield Boulevard. block 44, 108, lot 21-26, to repair an existing concrete retaining wall. For the record, please introduce yourself.
My name is James Pagano, and my wife Eileen and I bought 840 East Wakefield Boulevard in December of 2016. All right.
I
So
just,
back in 2016.
just for the record, we're on digital screens above us, so that
So that everybody can see,
See.
and I can explain things in detail for everybody.
okay.
All right, so when we bought this property, it was in a state of neglect. And you'll see photographs later on prior, before we got started, and what we've done to the properties right now, with just cleaning it up. But when I knew that because of the neglect, that we were going to have to go and get some of the work done, I approached the town officials, and they told me it would be in my own best interest to get a survey done that would document the existing conditions and show the property line. So we hired Peter and Jason Keith right down the block here on Main Street, who provided us with a survey. And when we found the survey, what we found was that the property line itself, I'm sorry, I have to go back once, I'm too quick with things. The property line itself, that a portion of the wall, this is the retaining wall, goes from here, comes around and goes to there, all right? That a portion of the retaining wall was actually on town property. So, we then had to jump through multiple hoops, and we went to the Board of Select and asked for permission to get an easement so that we could make this retaining wall repair. We then went back to the, we went to the easement, the zoning people. They approved us, all right? Then we went back to Board of Select, and they approved us onto a public hearing. Then we had a public hearing, and the public hearing unanimously approved that we could get the easement. So the next step then, of course, is to come to you and ask for permission to do the retaining wall now that we have the ability to do the whole wall. So what I want to show you is that the wall itself is a concrete wall. It's existing concrete wall, and this is the lake, is out here, all right? This back here is an existing concrete slab, which I'll show you pictures of in a little bit. And over here would be East Wakefield Boulevard, all right? So, and we're talking only 20 feet from the retaining wall probably to East Wakefield Boulevard. And there's a small retaining wall back here that is supporting the actual East Wakefield Boulevard. So what happens is this. When the retaining wall was built, it was backfilled with pea gravel, very small stone. Every time a boat comes through, there are existing weep holes. And every time a boat comes through, the water comes into the weep hole, comes in and sucks out material. So that there is literally, underneath this concrete slab, there is a major void where it's hollow. You can hear it. The actual concrete slab is depressed and deformed. There's holes in it. So what we want to do is we then went out and retained the services of an engineer, Jason Dismukes. Jason Dismukes is right out of Goshen here. And he came and come up with a solution, which is, again, this is the existing wall. He wants to extend the wall, the footing back an additional 3 feet. That additional 3 feet, he then wants to then tie what they call a buttress. Down into the existing wall, that's right here, and then tie the wall into the existing footing back here. In addition to that, what we'll do is the contractor will come along and put in a 4-inch PVC perforated pipe along the base of the wall, that will actually be surrounded with stone, and that the stone will be surrounded with a filter fabric that wraps around it with a minimum of 12 inches, so that the filter fabric and the pipe itself, the perforated pipe, will tie into the existing weep holes, so that anytime the boats come in, it will allow the water to come in, but it'll be stopped between the filter fabric, the stone, and it will not allow it to be sucked back out. But at the same time, any effluent, or I should say a runoff that comes in from East Wakefield or anything that percolates into the ground, it will be allowed to come back through this perforated stone, excuse me, the perforated pipe and the stone, so that it can get back into the lake without any issues. So that's what we're proposing to do. I would like to, like I said, we are not going to do anything on the lakeside at all. What the plan is to wait for this, if you approve it, we'd go out to a contractor, and that contractor would start after the 4-foot drawdown, which will take us to the bottom of the footing, because right now with the 3-foot footing, the hole was exposed already. So I'll just go a little further and show you that, just for your information, this is an aerial photograph that's on the state of Connecticut's website that shows the property, shows the retaining wall as it was, and it's still there, and nothing has changed, and this is from 1980. All right, so I'm just telling you that nothing has changed. This is the property itself, this is the retaining wall, it shows the exact same thing. Everything was there as it was. I told you that it's in a state of deterioration. You can see the lakeside out here beyond the railings. This is the concrete slab. You can actually see holes here where and it's depressed. The concrete slab is in very poor condition. It is actually hollow that goes all the way from here and extends all the way back here. Just beyond here is a small retaining wall, and right there is East Wakefield Boulevard, right behind that.
This property that you're showing us now, looking at the house from the street,
Is
to the right of the
it's
house.
to the right, to the west, it's to the east of the house, correct. To the east, to the right of the house.
To the right of the house.
If you stand on East Wakefield Boulevard, the retaining wall is to the right of the house. I'm gonna show you pictures of the retaining wall itself. As you can see, it's actually started to come out of plumb and be displaced. This is one of the weep holes that you can see, and in further pictures you'll see another one, more of it. You can actually see in here some of the stone that was actually sucked out and in there. This, again, you can see there's the bottom of the footing. This was during the deep drawdown. I'm not denying that, but you can see that 3 feet down, this is most of where the water line is. You can see a weep hole. There's another weep hole over here. But 3 feet down from here is basically the bottom of the footing. But this is the retaining wall. It'll be limited from here to where, just beyond that other photograph that I showed you, the crack thereof. All right, so I want to show you what this property looked like.
Excuse me, just for 1 second, sir.
Sure.
That drawdown, that was a deep drawdown.
That was a deep drawdown,
So-
but with a 3-foot drawdown,
Where do you think the water would be?
it will be beyond the bottom of the footing, because we had the 3-foot drawdown this past year.
Right.
Right.
And the footing was there. I was already at the bottom of the footing. So with a 4-foot drawdown this year would be, again, but nobody's stepping foot in that side. Nobody's gonna do any work on that side. There's no reason to go onto the lakeside at all. Everything's gonna be from behind the wall,
So the front is gonna be just left as is?
just as it is. Excuse me, you saw the crack? He's called to epoxy the crack. Epoxy eject the crack.
Go back to that picture with at the deep drawdown? Yeah. So you're saying that the
So here's the existing water line every day, right there. All right, 3 feet down is here. Oh, heck, sorry about that. 3 feet down is here. This rock is partially underwater at 3 feet. At 4 feet, you'll be beyond here. You'll be down here. you could see this entire rock, maybe 3 inches or so with a 3-foot drawdown. With a 4-foot drawdown, you'll see the whole thing. But again, we're not on that side at all. We're gonna do, all the work is gonna be on the back side.
So you're gonna restore the wall to some kind of integrity behind the wall, between the wall and the street?
We're going to, the walls in itself should be fine. We're going to dowel into it to create a buttress.
Yeah.
And what that does is the wall is like this, it holds it together. When we put all the weight back on the bottom of the footing, all right, this footing that's here, all right, we put all the soil back. It may come back, but even if it doesn't come back, it's now all tied together with these 5 buttresses so that it will not move further, fall into the lake.
Okay, thank you.
This is what this place looked like when we got here in 2016. As you can see how close we are to the road. That's a truck that's on the road that we
You
would
have a
use
fence
to.
there now, right? You have a fence.
We have a fence there now, but this, you can see this is part of the fence, the railing systems that were here. Again, that's this small retaining wall that's here, and that's right here, as you can see, that's East Wakefield right there. But you can see the debris and everything else that we pulled out of this place, and the amount. Now I'm gonna show you the other side. If I can get it there. My hand up, maybe that one. This is the west side. Yes, the west side of the building when we came here in 2016. This is what it looks like now. So I'm asking for permission to hire a contractor so that I can fix the wall and not have to worry about East Wakefield Boulevard or our property, and we can use our property. Because right now, behind that wall, I don't trust anybody walking there. When my older kids come and bring their friends, I literally put up caution tape and fence it off so that nobody can walk there, because I have some concern.
At the top of these stairs right now, I think you have a little, like a wrought iron gate.
Yes. Yeah, it's a little, yes,
A little-
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just wanted prospectively
Yes.
see what I saw, where
Yes,
it
yes.
is. Do you intend to do any work on that little patio area where these stairs go down to? In other
No.
words, you have the wall where you're doing extensive work,
Well, that's on the other side, though.
then you have the house,
I have the house, and on this side
and
there,
there's a parking area,
someday,
and then there's a down.
right, someday, those decks have to get replaced. Someday. I have to come back and ask for permission then again, when it's time. All right? But it's not even, with what I think we're gonna spend here, it's not gonna be this year, it may not even be next year, maybe the year after that before I can get to it. All right, we're talking a lot of deck work here by the time I'm done, so it's probably at least 2 or 3 years out. And I would hire a contractor, a legitimate licensed contractor to do the work. I'll be on site while this work is going on. I am licensed professional engineer in the state of Connecticut. I've done construction for 30+ years, large construction, $300 million contracts. East Side Access, I don't know if anybody knows New York, but they went from, instead of just going into Penn Station, now they're going to Grand Central
Yes.
Station.
Yes.
I did 2 of those $300 million contracts. I was the construction manager for those,
I
running
worked
the whole
with David.
project.
I worked.
So I know construction. I will be on site. Even if it's winter, there's a local bed and breakfast in Torrington, right on 183. I've stayed there when I had to come to zoning and come to the Board of Select to help me there. Because there's no heat in the house, so when I have to shut down, I have to shut down. In October, we shut the place down. But, you have questions for me?
Number one, I'd like to compliment you. Thank you for bringing an engineer's report in, and I didn't see any survey.
Yes, it was, the first slide was a survey.
Okay.
It was, and it showed all the property lines, and it showed the existing conditions.
And there's pins there and everything else that,
Well, that's an issue that I have with Mr. Peter Keefe, that he still owes me a survey, markers, yes.
okay.
But the property lines are here, you see the green line? That green line is the property line,
You said all of that, but.
this green line is the property line, that's a property line.
Okay.
All right, so the property lines are there, and he does owe me some stakes, but yes.
Okay, so It's identifiable.
Yes, and I have an easement from the town to do the work.
That you got Monday
I-
night, right?
Well, it was a couple of Mondays ago, but yes, I
Yes.
do, yes, I
All right,
have.
if you're not familiar with the process, tonight we entertained your conversation. We will ask you questions, or we may have asked all the questions we want to ask. And we're going to accept your application tonight. And then any concerns that we bring to your attention now, should there be any, we'd like you to address them for next month's meeting, because at that point, we'd like to vote.
Understood.
Okay? Any concerns from you guys?
No,
What's that?
I was at the easement meeting 2 weeks ago. You did a nice presentation on
So we
that.
told the truth?
Yes, yes, yes.
Gary, anything?
Unanimously approved by the public as well as the Board of Select, and
Yes.
unanimously approved by the easement, or excused by zoning.
Meanwhile, I didn't realize that basically your whole deck behind your house is over the water.
Yeah, that, yes,
Yeah.
yes,
That-
but it's a
that
small deck,
fence-
it's only about
I know, but it's,
2.5 feet or so.
because the foundation is like set back behind it.
It's hanging off the edge, correct, and that is something that Mr. Dismukes will have to come up with a design so that it gets through your approval. Because we all know, you're not gonna allow them to put a footing in the water, we all
Right.
know that.
All right, so anything else? Gary?
No, I walked it today.
I did too.
Gary came by today.
I was
You
here.
should stop in.
I was there a couple weeks ago, huh?
I was there yesterday.
I would've, we weren't there, we came today.
Gary?
No, I think I think it's accessible. Fence comes down in the front so they can get the trucks off the road. There's not gonna be any impediment of traffic or anything to that nature.
Those fence panels are 6 foot wide, they slide right up, and slide right back in. So it's not an issue that way. Figure it's a small skid
No, I
steer or
saw
a
it,
small
it's pretty
excavator to get in and
straightforward.
out.
I like that they're putting the pavers back from the concrete, versus the concrete. It's always better in our book. They're somewhat permeable, I guess you could say.
I didn't see it.
Okay.
I didn't look at it. I'll look at it
Totally
this month.
permanent. We'll get to another-
All right, are there any concerns that we're going to bring to the applicant tonight that he has to address?
No, I don't think so.
No, you did an excellent job.
Okay,
Thank you.
we'll see you next month.
Sure. You wanna see another presentation again, just in case
You
there's
know
public
what?
comment or anything
I
like that,
think,
or?
I think you've addressed anything ahead of time that we might ask for our satisfaction right now.
I mean, I have paper copies if somebody wants to take a copy.
Why don't you leave one with Jeff,
Yeah, sure.
okay?
I mean, the only difference is that it says easement, but it's everything else.
Okay. All right, look forward to you next month.
Thank you.
Do you have a motion to accept? Thank you, Jackie.
Jeff
Go
was
ahead.
very helpful, by the way. And Lance.
Make a motion to accept, application. IWWC 840 East Wakefield Boulevard.
There a second?
Second.
Frank, have you, all those in favor of acceptance? It's unanimous?
Yes.
Okay, good night and thank you for coming. Next application is IWWC 23-8, Tony Talinsky. 816 East Wakefield Boulevard to install a boat lift. Did anybody hear from them as to why they're not here?
I believe Shane did reach out to them, and they were aware that this was going on tonight. I'm not sure why they did not appear.
I visited the property and, the question I have is where they want to put what they want to put in the water. And it becomes maybe necessary to have a public hearing. So, without them present,
Just have to move it to the next meeting.
Move it to the next meeting.
We could hold it over if you'd
We
like,
could hold it
before an
over.
official acceptance, and then that way the clock won't
well,
start.
we can accept it and schedule a public hearing. This way, we don't lose a lot of time and delay the process, which would I be inclined to do, only because, you know, I'm not sure. I took pictures. I took pictures, and based on the pictures I took, there's a dock that goes out, it's got a canoe on it, and then there's a a boat lift in the water already. And the positioning of the boat lift, I didn't take a tape measure with us, and I didn't go out into the water, obviously. Looks like it's pretty close to the littoral boundary. So, just to err on the side of caution, I'd like to schedule a public hearing because it may be within the littoral boundary. And if they were here and they said they were gonna move it over a foot, it might necessitate us not having a public hearing.
Well,
Any feeling about it?
The drawing you drew shows he's gonna move it right to the middle of the property.
Those are right in the center of their lot.
50 foot of waterfront,
They're
and
gonna be
they're gonna,
17 feet, 15 feet from each side of your property line.
So then we know there's a public hearing.
No.
But we also do, we usually don't do these off these kind of drawings too much, or like just the hand drawings, is that gonna be an issue?
It is and it isn't. We've
Yeah.
come to a point where we've been trying to get an A2 survey for the docks and everything up front, but then again, you can let them put,
Yeah.
they're drawing a dock in, you know what I mean?
It's clear.
and what's an A2 survey go for these days? A couple thousand?
Yeah, not cheap.
I mean, he's got all the measurements in here.
Okay, so they're gonna move what I saw pictures of.
Yeah.
I said that we could just simply accept the application,
Yes.
and, if we're satisfied with the proposal next month, we can approve. If we want more information,
Or
we'll
you
just extend
To
it.
get more information? if
Yeah.
you need to.
All right, I'll make a motion to accept the application as it is without prejudice, for, 816 East Wakefield Boulevard. And the permit is to install a 10-by-10 boat lift next to the existing dock. And I think the existing dock is misleading. The dock exists, but not in the position it's gonna be in. Okay? Is there a second to accepting without prejudice? Gary, all those in favor? Russ? Unanimous, okay. Jeff, please make sure they're here next month.
Yep.
Thank you, or to the best of your ability. The next item on the agenda is warnings, there are none.
I know.
Although I have two concerns, and they don't necessarily have to be addressed tonight. We're waiting for two agent determinations that weren't completed.
So, interesting enough, 257 Colebrook Road, we talked with them today. They do have a cesspit, septic system that was approved with the house in the 1960s. They've only lived there 2 years. So I spoke with Charles today, and he said what they've done is they've snaked a camera through to see if the piping is still properly working, because you can't find where the outlet is. So that's gonna be an ongoing conversation with them. And you know, to remind me, what was the other one?
Golden?
Oh, Brian Godin. Did you hear from him at all?
I haven't, I was by just the other day and it didn't look like work had been performed on the side of the house yet.
Their easement is a temporary one, that's not.
It
permanent.
expires September 1st.
Yeah, we need to kinda push him a little bit.
We're just going back real quick to the one you just talked about with the septic.
Yeah.
So they are, where, could you just repeat that, where you're saying that, that they're using the existing septic that's there?
So it's a
but-
cesspit or a, I forget what the other thing is called. Yeah, well, it's.
No, there's another name for it, I remember.
No, cesspool.
Cesspool.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, and I know that was a concern of the commission if that was failing, but they've only been there 2 years, and it is only 2 of them. I know it might make a difference if they were a bigger family, but what I'm gonna have to work with Charles is they gotta figure out where it is, and he doesn't know. And I did confirm with Torrington Area Health District, I think I mentioned
it is a fairly sensitive spot because it is right, and that's been always my concern, I think other commissioners, that it's, you're right on the river there, and it's
Yep, they're in a tough spot, and we try to have this conversation with them, is they're like 85 feet from the road to the river, and then I think it's like less than that from the river to the house. So that everything that's their usable yard is in the review area.
Best thing, if they put their camera down, they don't find an outlet.
Was it?
I think the best thing is when they put their camera down, they don't find an outlet.
Well, cesspool doesn't have a piping system. Cesspool is just a tank that.
If they find an outlet, we got a problem.
Yeah.
or cesspool has a tank to it,
Yeah, cesspool is just.
so it can be pumped out, is that what?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying,
right.
that's what we do on Long Island. I mean, every
Right.
2 years you get it pumped out, but I'm saying there's no piping system to leach.
Right, right.
It just, it leaches into the ground.
Modified agenda that was on our
It's
desk.
not a
So could
leaching
they,
field.
right,
but
could they
it's
find
piping.
a tank, I guess is the question?
That's what we're gonna have to figure out.
Right,
So we can-
Okay, that must be the one I,
okay.
139.
oh, okay.
Yeah, I see what you mean, yeah, it is a
Then
problem.
it's going to the river.
Okay, there are a series of violations that are still listed, there's 7. There's one that I'm extremely concerned about because it's become an issue in terms of action that the board has already taken. I'm referring to 139 West Wakefield Boulevard, where in past years, the homeowner, or the landowner, it's not a home, the landowner had rented out illegally dock space on a permanent basis to 3 individuals, and thus created a second marina, which our ordinance does not allow for. We thought we had put a stop to that, and apparently we failed, because the homeowner is still continuing to rent out dock space to 3 separate individuals without regard to our position on that. In talking to Jeff about the issue, it's 139 West Wakefield Boulevard.
They didn't go to court, the town didn't go to court on that?
We did, and I think the ruling was that what they did was illegal.
Right.
And apparently, they found a way to circumvent the illegality of it, and we don't know if what they did is legal.
Oh, okay.
What they did was they leased
Right.
1% of their property to 3 different individuals,
Quitclaim deed.
quitclaim.
Right. So now these are
1% of their
owners.
property, which now makes these 3 individuals an owner
Oh,
to a
okay.
certain extent of
All right.
1% of their
Oh.
property. In having this conversation with Jeff, he did the research on it, and we did go to court and all of that, so the background stands. He ran the concept of what this individual did past Kevin Nelligan, and we asked for a ruling, and Kevin did give us a ruling. If you bear with me until I find it. Jeff, do you have it? I could summarize it, but I'm looking for the piece of paper itself.
She's got it for you right there.
Oh, okay. This yours or mine?
Mine.
Oh, okay. In talking to Kevin, this was the question that was asked. Whether or not the homeowner was allowed to take the action that she did in quitclaiming a deed to 3 individuals, thus circumventing the ruling of creating a second marina by renting out space. And Kevin Nelligan's response was very succinct. He said the ordinance does limit each dock to 3 vessels, so that part of it is acceptable, except that the vessels need to be registered to the holder of the permit. Now, the permit for the dock, I think when Jeff went into the research, looked at it, and it was the lady who owns the property, Bijou, or?
Babish, Michelle
Babbage?
Babbage, yeah.
So she owns.
She
was
owns the property, she owns the permit for the dock, which, by the way, does seem to be out of compliance from the dock approval that's in the file, so that's another issue. But what Kevin said was the boats on that dock need to belong to the permit holder of that dock. So that would sort of end the wrinkle that she put in there with the, with quitclaim deeds.
Okay, and our next state of action?
Well, as I said in my report here, I can sort of restart the process with her again, that she's in violation. In my opinion, she's shown that she's not really worried about those violations. This issue goes back to at least 2012, when basically the same problem appeared in the Republican American. At that point, she withdrew and changed things, but she's doing it again. So I would recommend that we put this in Nelligan's hands to go to her directly.
I think what happened was the neighbor complained that she rebuilt the docks to access three boats on it.
And I would agree that the
So
dock
that
is
means
rebuilt
the permit
larger
she had for
than,
the original dock is gone because now she changed the whole design of the dock system on the property.
Expanded, yeah.
Expanded,
Yes.
without permit.
right.
That's how it started.
So, yeah,
And I did find a letter in the file prepared by my predecessor, Michael. It's unclear if that letter was ever sent. This was dated fall last year. So again, I can, officially start that process again, but the facts of the case are all the same.
why is it unclear that whether the letter was sent or not?
There wasn't a certified tracking number on there, so I'm not able to see if,
Okay.
yeah.
All right, so then you're going to follow up on this, both with the individual in an attempt to remedy it, or go directly to Kevin, and, begin court action against her?
I could start both paths if
Yeah.
you'd like, or
Yeah.
one or the other. You want to go both ways?
I think so. I think
Okay.
we'll extend it a courtesy.
Sure.
I don't know if it's warranted, but we'll extend it a courtesy. What's that?
Does she already have a cease and desist?
No, no, I
Should
mean,
we start with that? Threaten some fines
I mean,
on her?
what are we gonna
already
cease
did
and
it once.
desist?
It's a
I
violation.
thought that was just the,
It's a violation of
process.
dock and mooring ordinances, that's the essence of this. Right.
So she's not in the process of doing it, she's done it already.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have not seen more than 3 boats. It started with 2 when I started. Now there are 3, so she seems to not want to go over that 3-boat limit as of yet.
Doesn't the dock look like it's expanded a little in the
Yes.
pictures?
Yeah.
That's what was said by
It
Frank.
does not seem to match the permit and the drawings that are in the file.
As a matter of fact, somebody noticed that one of the boats was floating free at one end.
Oh, I hadn't. Okay.
Anyway, so you'll follow up on that?
Yeah, absolutely.
And, I think the expectation is that we get some kind of a definitive answer from both you and Kelligan as to where we are next month. Okay, and 52 Strong Terrace, that was another violation. The gentleman has not applied for a permit, or has? Not, I don't have it on my desk, so I'm gonna say he hasn't.
Yeah, so Mr. Finn has been in a few times. What he's done is he's applied for a driveway permit because the essence of the work that was done there was a driveway. There have been some discussions of whether or not we think he needs to apply for a wetlands permit as well. He obviously has some wetlands remediation work that he needs to do, but he's not, the application would be to disturb him. He's already disturbed him. Now he's got to put him back. So again, if you guys feel he should also pull a wetlands permit, I'll let him know that and get that done. At this point, he does have a surveyor on the hook, but he doesn't have a date to get it performed. As you guys are aware, surveyors are pretty jammed up lately. So he's going to let me know once he gets a date on that. As far as the encroachment with the neighbor, and the neighbor is here this evening, he did let us know in the office he was toying with the idea of a lot line revision. Again, he would need the survey before he could even start down that process. That would not alleviate the need to restore the wetlands or some of the other violations that he has going on there.
Furthermore, I left on your desks this evening, because it just came in before the meeting, a memo that was prepared by Ware's Tree Service concerning the neighbor's tree that has been impacted by the driveway encroachment. I don't know if you guys got a chance to read it, but basically he's confirmed that the state of the tree is as a result of the process being pushed right up onto the tree. He's recommending removal and replacement of that. So I'm not sure how we're gonna go about that, if we add that into Finn's work that is required. But that's where we stand with that. I think a lot of it is dependent upon the survey that we need. He has not done any further work as ordered, so it's in the same state that Lance and I found it last month.
Now, when you say he, is it the owner of the property or the renter of the property?
So
that's
the
been doing
renters of the property did the work, but Mr. Finn realizes that, you know, it's his property and.
it? Did Mr. Finn order the work?
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair question to ask.
Mhm.
So it was done without him initiating any kind of request to do what he did, what the renter did.
According to
But
him,
now
the-
it's
the
assuming
renters took it upon
responsibility
themselves.
because he's the owner.
Correct.
Okay. Anything to add?
I would just like to know, is there a time frame here? I understand that the surveyors are busy, but how long can this process go on before he's either held accountable or has submitted a plan or what his intentions are? Or is it solely based on the survey? And this goes with the brook that's, without a doubt in my mind, on my property, was on my property. Still is, but it's no longer a brook. It's all filled in. And it's raw, it's weeds. I'm about to put my house on the market and I'm looking at potential buyers that are gonna say, I mean, do I elaborate on what's going on? It's gonna be an issue. And now there's a dead tree involved, which is on my property, which someone's gonna have to take down. It hangs over his driveway where they park cars. And it's not, it'll be dead. It probably won't come back next year. I mean, it's unsalvageable. So I just am looking at a time frame. I'd like to know, potentially what may or may not happen. So
This is
that I
also-
can, have an intelligent answer when somebody, they don't really need to ask, but I should disclose.
This is also a zoning issue, correct? With the driveway or no? This is, there is a small water course here, so that's kind of how it ended up. on
Right,
this
well,
one, but are
there was obviously no driveway permit pulled before the work
Right.
either, so, yeah, sure.
Still hasn't been.
He started the you know what? I think he got hung up at the fact that he needed to post a bond.
Oh, okay.
So maybe it's still in the,
Because it hasn't made its way to me yet.
okay, all right.
If,
He in effect
Can I
hasn't
answer
done
your
anything.
question, even though it's not a good answer, but you're not gonna wanna hear? It can take a very long time with the town. You
If-
may wanna consider a civil suit at some point if you don't feel like you're doing
And that's an unfortunate thing to know if I'm selling my house.
I think timing-wise, we're concerned about your concerns. If the dead tree were removed at his expense, does that allow you to move ahead and put your property up for sale? Because his end of everything else is gonna take time, as you've heard. I don't know what kind of time frame you're putting on trying to sell.
I mean, I'm hoping to list in the next 2 weeks, after July 4th.
Do you have a sense of how far the encroachment is onto your property? A foot, 10 feet?
No, I would say it's about,
5 to 10 is probably
yeah,
realistic.
probably no more than 10 feet, but it's in a couple of, besides the fact the brook is probably, it's 90% on my property.
But
The whole length of the brook. The only part that is on his property is the last 4 Yeah, we haven't spoken since
Yeah.
prior to the thing.
I think it is, I would agree with Lance, and I feel for it, it's a tough situation. Somebody's done some property damage to your property, and you feel like there's nothing you can do about it right at the moment. I think but unfortunately, the survey is like the first step to seeing where the lines truly are. You have to work off that, unfortunately. I actually had to deal with it on my property one time where the neighbor swore that it was her property and did all this stuff, and it turned out it wasn't. But it just,
Well, again,
I couldn't move forward with it without the survey. It's tough.
My deed is real specific about that pin to the end of the stone wall that goes across the whole front of my property. So there's not much leeway there. I mean, it's not gonna be anything but a straight line from that pin
Yeah, no, I know.
to the corner, the end of my wall. And the driveway is on, his concrete surface that he poured over the gravel and dirt and whatever. I mean, there's some kind of a concrete surface on there. And they told me that at the time, or the wife did, that it was some kind of concrete mix texture. I saw him down there scraping it and feeling it, trying to figure out what it is. So there's no doubt that that comes up out of my property at some point, and then the whole brook mess at the top. It's just raw, it's weeds, I've got 3-foot weeds, thistle, a dead tree, and just, I was hoping that they would at least finish it, landscape it, make it look nice, agreeable, and that's what I approached Mr. Finn about, because the tenants have moved out and left their young adult children there to manage the place. So, it's like I can't, my initial approach to him was multiple issues about the garbage debris and the furniture out in the back on the lawn and the whole 9 yards, but it was, what can we do about this space here? And that's when I approached him about splitting the cost of a fence with me. Because there's no more privacy between our properties. The brook was really a natural kind of delineation between our properties, but that doesn't exist anymore. The driveway goes from the street all the way to the back. I mean, you can park like 10 cars in there now, and there's nobody there anymore.
Can you issue a cease and restore to pre-conditions? Won't need to have a survey for that, you can get right on it, it'll alleviate the work of your wetlands situation, damage done to the brook, and doesn't need a survey, you can just, do the best, there's probably a picture somewhere and say,
I
this is
have
what we're,
many pictures.
so if you
I mean,
supply
we do have
that.
a cease and desist order that we did right away, that's what brought him in the next day. I'm trying to think, we did something similar with 19 High Street, which,
So I think there's a cease and desist and a cease and restore. You can
Okay.
do one and or the other. And you just say, the first step in this is restore this, and part of the restoration could be taking down the tree, just,
Does that have anything to do with the brook?
Yeah, he's
Well,
gonna
yeah,
restore the
that's
brook,
what I'm
he's
saying.
gotta restore the brook.
That's
Right,
where
like,
our,
put it back. Great.
that's where town authority comes from, is the brook, the
Who?
impact of the brook.
That cease and restore direction would come from this commission?
Yeah, because it's a wetlands violation. What they did to the brook would be a wetlands violation, so the cease and restore would come. from the
Cease and restore. That's kind of a new term. I mean, I like it, but we haven't dealt with that one before.
Double
But
check my recollection.
It is a good way to look
I do think that's a valid,
I like it.
I didn't even know we had that tools.
Would I,
again,
I might have to go to
I'm
court.
basing that on my 13 years in this commission.
why don't we make a motion to that effect, run it by Nelligan, and see if we're empowered to do that?
What at least the lawyer is.
What's that?
That's at least the town lawyer would.
That's
be able to-
Nelligan, that's what I
Yeah,
said.
yeah,
Run it by
yeah,
Nelligan,
Right.
and if he agrees with the concept, then send a letter to that effect, and give him a time frame in which to do it. You gotta be somewhat reasonable, but a time frame. And, let's see where we go with that.
And we want to include the tree in this as well?
You should.
Part of the
It's
restore.
part of the restoration, yeah.
I don't want my potential buyers to have to, I do have a dead tree that needs tending, and that is my responsibility. I already took down 17, so that's one more, ash. This is a maple, but I don't want my potential buyers to have to deal with 2 dead trees.
Is there a motion to that effect? Let's try it.
Yeah, let's try it.
I'll make a motion that we authorize Jeff to pursue a cease and desist, restore order issued to the owner of 52 Strong Terrace, Mr. Finn? That is correct?
Edmund Finn.
Edmund Finn. And
That's the owner, right?
that's the owner.
You have to do it.
Is there a second to that motion? Jackie, all those in favor? Okay, it's unanimous. Jeff, thank you.
Thanks.
Jim, thank you.
Thank you.
See where it goes.
Okay.
Okay, where are we?
Yes.
My understanding is that Josh Kelly was gonna be here tonight?
Obviously it's not, so we'll just put it on the next one.
Okay, just under old business, the formal adoption of a revised Inland Wetlands Water Commission regulations for the general code recommendations. In talking to Josh, it's something that has to be dealt with by this commission. It's a need of the selectmen to receive either approval or disapproval for this revision of the code. We just have to go ahead and deal with it, period. We don't have to agree with it, we can vote it down and the selectmen will still do what they want to do, but we have to address it. Is that correct?
That's about the size of it.
Okay. Jackie, anything with Highland Lake? Nothing? We dealt with the West Wakefield Boulevard address, the quitclaim deed. Jeff and Jim are both here. Can you give us an update on the, what's going on with the department?
All right, so first of all, I don't really have much of an update because I've been in Alaska the last 2 weeks and haven't really caught up with my guys as to what was going on. Other than the random, miscellaneous stuff we've been doing, most of Highland Lake was done prior to, last meeting. And, they're just, as time allows, going around hitting, random catch basins or random streets worth of catch basins and sweeping, wherever they can. And that's, he usually does it plow route by plow route, starting around Highland Lake, getting that one done, and then moving out. I don't know if he does the same pattern every year, but that's just kind of an ongoing thing. One thing that happened earlier, one of your applicants, I think it was the Cumberland Farms, asked if he was good to go after the approval. Again, check my facts on this, but I think there's a 14-day appeal period that, someone can appeal your decision in 14 days. Like, not likely to happen, but just, I do remember, that being on contentious things, which that one wasn't, but just something to, plant the seed in your head and, again, make sure my facts are right.
Would that be for a homeowner also?
Yeah, any approval. Yeah, any approval. I believe there's a 14-day appeal period. If nobody appeals in 14 days, they missed their chance. But there is a 14-day, because that gives it time for.
That's kind of big news for us, though, in a sense, right?
I don't recall that, but
Yeah, I think I heard it.
that's easy to find out.
Yeah, so.
Thank you. Jim, from my perspective, just two things. One, I think the work that you completed at Taylor Brook is completed.
We still have to remove the erosion controls, right?
Right.
Wait for it to get a little bit more stabilized. And, yeah, I think that's about it.
Is it necessary to leave the signs up?
I think the signs have to be done until the final signature is done.
So even though it says it's closed and there's a
Does
detour?
it say it's
Oh, it
closed?
doesn't
No,
close,
I think
it just says work, construction work
Yeah,
ahead.
yeah, the road
Reduce
closed stuff is gone.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think it just says,
Yeah. I was there today.
liability or
I was
something.
there today.
Okay.
But I think those have to be there until that final
Right.
sign off. So, but I can double check on that.
And the other thing is, because of there was a heavy rain mid-afternoon yesterday,
Right.
and some of the dirt roads were washing down
All of them, probably.
dead into the lake.
Oh, the ones around the lake.
Yeah, dead into the lake. I mean, like mud running down from the roads across East Wakefield, or that I saw on East Wakefield, and
Yeah.
along the
So,
East
you know,
Wake.
we've spoken about that.
A million
you know,
times.
A bazillion times, and,
Well,
I can
does
reiterate.
Candy talk to you in reference to the hood program? She hasn't yet.
Yeah, she did actually.
Okay, because they did a survey for, and what she asked for, and put the priority 1 and 2 basins in areas where there's a lot of silt issues. I mean, this is, I mean,
Yeah, and so the hooded catch basins are part of, the Highland Lake Drainage Project thing that we put into our bid, and that's some of the treatments that's gonna be, attached to some of these basins. They're all have different priority levels, and that's, but that's one of the things we're looking at.
Right.
The biggest problem is the town doesn't really have control over
Private streets.
the private roads. We don't own them, we can't maintain them. The owners of most of those are the actual development company from back in the 18 whatevers or early 1900s, and good luck finding them. Their heirs would still be responsible. By now there's probably hundreds of them, and to track them down and hold them accountable is another story. If the town were to just say, hey, you haven't paid taxes on these in 60 years, we're gonna take them, and then we own them. The town doesn't want to do that, so.
By the same token, we don't want that soot to run into the lake every time it rains.
Well, you see,
That's right, it's.
And then during the winter, it creates ice jams.
the other part of it is, it's gonna be a 3-piece. It's gonna be more sweeping in those areas, cleaning the catch basins that are the critical ones that go into the lake, the sweeping and, that type of thing.
That's one of the reasons we swept around Highland Lake 9 times last year,
Yeah.
You could sweep around there every other time it rains.
You might.
Really, realistically.
Suppose we could,
And it's too late, because
and then it's too late.
it's after the fact.
Yeah, and by then it's the fines, the heavy aggregates are still on the road, and in the bottom of the basins, the fines that carry the nutrients that have already made their way out.
That's what I said. You had something else on
And
your?
the hoods don't really help you with
No,
the
no,
fines.
but it's
good with the
just
floating
another
debris. Yeah.
way of
Yeah.
getting it out of there,
Maybe we can explore some coagulants, that's another option, but again, that's part of the Highland Lake Drainage Project. is that, and that's in the hands of the engineers now, they don't have the bandwidth to go any faster than they already are.
You had something on your agenda before I interrupted you?
The one thing I wanted to address was the gross exaggeration of the guy from, 183
Sean.
20th Street, about me dumping oil in the river.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that.
So, back when his nightmare first started, what's that, 7 years ago? Like a long time ago. I was part of the first group of wetlands people that went up to see the debauchery that he had inflicted upon the property. And he started giving me a rash of bullshit, and I called him on it, and we've been banging heads ever since. So immediately he decides to do a tour of Public Works, took some pictures, sent them into DEP, and they sent an investigator down. It turns out he took a picture of, annually, we suck out the water from the bottom of our above-ground fuel tank to keep the water out of the diesel fuel. So they put a device down and just skims the very bottom, 1/8 inch or so of water off. They put that into a 55-gallon drum. It's 80% water, a little bit of oil, fuel oil film. So I told my guys to take that drum and set it out back with the small bung on the bottom and just let it sit. All the oil will rise to the top. Drain the oil until you see your first bit of oil. Put the bung in and then pour the rest of it down our oil separator. It left, and we did that in an area on top of old asphalt millings, which is where apparently DEP told us to do that in the past. So he happened to come by and see this sheen on top of the millings and took pictures of it. And of course, the pictures look way more exaggerated than the reality. So by the end of the day, DEP comes stormtrooping in with lights and sirens and, drag me by the ears out back. And they look at that and they go,
that to them is an illegal discharge.
Well, no, it wasn't. They go,
But I mean,
oh,
no.
really? This is what these pictures are? And they just said, so that, I just want to let you know that that was a gross exaggeration of something that Deep came, I didn't know he was the one that called. I'm not surprised, but, but so that's, I wanted to just let you know that that was
For the record.
for the record.
Okay,
So,
anything else?
that's all.
Just one last comment before we close. The staff notes that you provide us with, if you can have them in our package,
Okay.
so that we have them when we view our packs.
Yep.
And I think I like the concept, and it's been ongoing for a little bit of time. I'd like it to continue, but if you can get them to us with the package, then, you know, it sort of like puts the meeting together in a better perspective for me, anyway. The minutes are vital, staff notes are vital, and then my head is vital, so if I can, I'd like to see it all at once.
Okay,
All
absolutely.
right, anything else outstanding?
We did pretty good.
Is there a motion to adjourn? Jeffrey, and second, Jackie, all those in favor of adjourning? All right, guys, thank you very much.
See you all soon.
See you next month.